Hello and welcome to PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Ian Hartitz, and let me be the first or 10th to, wish you a happy Thanksgiving. I know you listen to us on a Wednesday, but we are almost to the best holiday of the year. We got plenty of football to talk about in the meantime. As always, on this edition of the PFF Fantasy Football Podcast, I am joined by none other than PFF senior analyst himself, Dwain "The Rock" McFarland. Dwain, how are you, my friend?
Man, I'm good. I'm ready for turkey and dressing, Ian. I'm ready.
I was freaking born ready for it. And let's get right into it, everyone. Bears at the Lions, kicking things off Thanksgiving, Thursday, noon football. Don't be ashamed if you want to sleep in through this one. Bears sitting as 3.5-point favorites. Game total down to 41.5 after opening at 45. As always, I'm going to run through the away teams, and Dwain has home. So that starts off with the Bears, and Andy Dalton will unfortunately be starting over Justin Fields, still dealing with that rib injury. Not going to give him a go with the short week. So with Dalton, just know it's going to be lame and it's going to be really conservative. He has only a 6.9 yard average target depth this year. That's the sixth lowest mark among 44 qualified quarterbacks. Guess who's first? Justin Fields at 10.9. So we really are seeing totally different versions of this offense depending on whether who's under center between Dalton and Fields. And yeah, nobody this season has thrown a higher percentage of their passes short of the sticks than Dalton. So he can look confident at times, but we just kind of know what we have here, and there's such a limited ceiling that beyond Darnell Mooney, it's going to be tough, everyone. It looks like Allen Robinson will be sidelined again. We're recording this Tuesday evening at about 5:45. So just saw Allen Robinson hasn't practiced all week, and that's great news for Mooney. I mean, we saw it, Dwain, 16 targets last week. I mean, that's what we dream of, like every situation. When we got A.J. Brown was the only guy left in Tennessee, Kadarius Toney's like in New York. When we dream of the number one guy just getting fed 16 targets like the Bears were willing to do with Darnell Mooney. Had a week high 205 air yards, and like Dwain, I'm not sure if you've done your rankings yet, but I do wonder, like, is wide receiver 3 even high enough? He might actually be someone we got to jam inside that top 24. I know Kevin Cole always does a great job with our PFF projections, and it's early in the week, but first look had Mooney as the wide receiver 7 on the week, and it sounds insane to me, Dwain, but at the same time, if we're projecting 10-12 targets, he probably should be up there at least in the top 20, 24.
He'll be in my top 18. So,
okay, nice.
I've tiered my receivers. I haven't ranked within my tiers yet. But I think I use a lot of the same criteria, honestly, as Kevin. Like our processes are a little bit different. But yeah, so he'll be a wide receiver 2 for me this week.
I think that adds up.
I think he's just real quick, Ian. I think he's finally healthy because, like, you and I have talked about it multiple times on the show. Like, he's had growing hamstring, I want to say even quadriceps. Like, he's been like limited. I would say like up until like 2 or 3 weeks ago. I bet like 60 to 70% of practices this season. He's just now been to where he's not on the injury report. So health could also be a factor.
So it's a really unique role for him. Again, I mentioned those week high 205 air yards, and he was actually third in unrealized air yards. So they weren't hitting the downfield shots to him, but he still had that great game because he took a screen 60 yards to the house. So it's great when we have the high floor from these short targets, but we're also still getting the deep balls downfield. Think of it as like Jalen Waddle if he actually got like consistent air yards as well. That's kind of what we're looking at with Mooney. So wide receiver 2, do not be afraid to fire him up on Thanksgiving. Final note for the Bears, David Montgomery still getting that every down rule. 95% of the snaps last week. That was the single highest mark from any running back in week 11. And he's facing the Lions defense that has been flamed by running backs this year. We've seen Aaron Jones, Alexander Madison, Joe Mixon, Nick Chubb, and Montgomery himself post top 6 finishes on the week against this defense. So you're starting Montgomery, even if there's a fire. Darnell Mooney should be in more lineups than not. And that is it for your Chicago Bears. So Dwain, Lions, we got some news that Jared Goff is going to be out there. But at this point, I mean, we got DeAndre Swift, we got TJ Hawkinson, and that's about it.
Yeah. Hey, real quick before we, it won't take me but just a second to do the Lions. Where do you think you're going to have Montgomery? I have him RB6 right now.
Oh,
I mean, 95% of the snaps, and you're playing the Lions. Like, it's hard for me to, I got him above AJ Dillon. I got him 2 spots above Swift, 3 spots above Henderson. And then I've got my next tier. So
for sure RB1, like for sure top 12. I'm not sure where I'll have him specifically. Like, you better have a damn good reason to bench Montgomery. And I don't even know if there is a good reason to bench Montgomery, Dwain. If you have, McCaffrey, Dalvin, and Jonathan Taylor, I guess we can talk. But I'm not so sure how many teams have that combo. So RB6 sounds a little optimistic, but I don't know, man. I think it's fair. He'll at least be in that.
I mean, 95% of the work against the Lions is all I need to know, right? I mean, and look, he's playing 100% of the long down distance, 100% of the 2 minute. Obviously, if you're 95%, you're never leaving the field,
right?
But I just think it's a good situation where, like, we know targets are coming, right? He hasn't gotten targets yet, and they could come, honestly, more with Andy Dalton.
They should,
because you won't have Justin Fields, taking off to scramble. So look, we don't get excited to talk about the Bears very often. So I'm glad for this one segment. It'll be 80% was Bears, and then now I'll do a real quick 20% on the Lions. Jared Goff. You could call him Jared Goff, like it's probably the same thing, but you don't really care. So DeAndre Swift, I have it running back 8 on the week. Running back strength of schedule is a 7.7, which will be a top 10, but it's just such a, they just don't have anybody else, Ian. So it's a pure volume thing. The game could be a little closer, so you could see a little bit of Jamal Williams. He was back last week. But like, do you ever trust the Lions to actually hold a lead, or keep the game from from trailing like 80% of the plays, like right out of the gate? So with Swift, he's still involved in the pass game, all those things. You guys don't need anything else. I'm not talking about the receivers. You want to see, you can go look at my rankings later in the week, but there's nothing here like of interest that I just have to get off my chest for you guys to listen to. But Hawkinson, obviously, he's out there. He's, up over 80% of the routes. He's doing all the things we want. He just, continues to get kind of tough matchups. And if you look at the tight end strength of schedule tool over at Pro Football Focus, which you guys can get 40% off of right now with Cyber40 is your discount code, you would see that it's a 4.1, which is below the league average. So it's kind of a tough matchup. They've got some pretty good linebackers, a couple of good safeties, but the main thing is, like, when you look at defensive points allowed to tight end, only 9.1 per game is what the Bears are giving up right now. Still, he's going to be one of the top 2 targets on the team between he and Swift, so you're going to get the volume. Just don't expect a lot out of it. I have him at tight end 8.
Dwayne, the company man, just casually slipping in that code, again, Cyber40 for 40% off any PFF subscription into everyday conversation. Great day to be great. Great day to help sell some PFF subs. We got the Raiders at the Cowboys midday Thanksgiving. You've probably eaten at this point, but you got to stay awake, at least maybe for a little bit. We'll see. Cowboys up to a 7.5 point favorite, opened at 5 points. Game total is at 51, down from 53. So it's getting worse and worse for Derek Carr. He's now gone on 3 straight games, worst PFF single game grade in each one of them. So weeks 1 through 8, we had mostly good things to say about Carr, because how could you really pick a bone with his performance? He had a 90.2 PFF passing grade. That was 4th among qualified QBs. He was 6th in yards per attempt, and he had a robust 9.2 yard average depth. He was forcing defenses to cover all areas of the field, making big things happen. Now, what's happened in the 3 weeks since? It has not been good, people. Major falls from Carr. And again, just these same things. So 51.7 PFF passing grade. That's 34th among qualified QBs. Just 7.2 yards per attempt. And that average target depth has gone from 9.2 yards all the way down to 7.3 yards. So we really have just seen this offense just, not be able to force defenses to respect the deep ball. And Dwayne, I saw some of your tweets how when Deshaun Jackson was out there on the field, like, defenses were sending help his way. And it makes sense. Even at his elderly state, Deshaun Jackson still has some speed. Maybe he doesn't know which way the end zone is when he gets the ball finally, but he still has that speed to make defenses forced to account for him. The question is, like, when are they going to pull the trigger and get D-Jax more involved? Like, he left the Rams because he didn't have consistent enough playing time. I assume when he signed with the Raiders, there was some sort of like, hey man, like, you'll be a starting receiver here, but he's still playing behind Zay Jones. Just 9 snaps in his first game with the Raiders, 16 snaps last week. I hope it's on the up and up. We will see what happens, because without it, everything is just that much tougher for Darren Waller and Hunter Renfrow in the intermediate areas of the field. So with Carr, I am really trying to avoid playing him like in fantasy until we can see him make a turn for the better. I know he was a guy we were comfortable kind of having around that QB1 borderline for a while. I think at this point he's probably a little better viewed as a low floor QB2, get him down more in that 15 to 16 area. I'm not saying the Cowboys defense is just completely unstoppable and they're going to shut down this Raiders team, but I don't know if there's a defense out there that this present edition of the Raiders offense would look that great about. So not too worried worry about Derek Carr. Darren Waller with Kelsey on a bye is arguably the overall tight end one this week. I don't need to explain that one. And then we got Renfrow, who I think we can go back to as a fine wide receiver 3. You know, we can't get too carried away. We saw the dud last week, but just because the guy dudded last week doesn't take away the fact that he was the overall wide receiver 11 in back-to-back games after Henry Ruggs was originally released from the squad. So feeling good about Renfrow, great about Waller, and Josh Jacobs. It's fine, man. Like, he hasn't finished as worse in the PPR RB34 this year. He's also not finished better than 15th. I was trying to make like an analogy in my article. It might be a shitty one, but Dwayne, I thought of Jacobs like this year. He's kind of been like that bag of chips that you have in the cabinet. You liked it enough to go buy it, but every single time you go to get a snack, like, you find yourself going for something else. Like, it's just never been appealing enough to really go after. It's not bad.
It is. It's like you reach in and you're like, oh, there's Josh Jacobs. I'll set him aside. What's that down there? You're like, that's not terrible. I would eat that if I was starving. But if I have other choices, like, I'm going to keep setting it. That's actually a really good analogy.
Thank you, man. You pick it out at the grocery store, but, you know, when push comes to shove, you can rank 15, 16, at least running backs ahead of them. So ultimately, the Raiders have 43 combined points over the last 3 weeks. The Cowboys have been the 5th best defense and limiting fantasy points per game to opposing running backs. Dwayne, you can shoot me with your Jacobs ranking before you get on to the Cowboys. But again, I'm thinking low-end RB2 is probably the right spot for him.
Yeah, I've got him at RB21 on the week.
Perfect.
You know, his snaps, his routes, everything is up over the last 3 weeks. But last week you did have Jalen Richard out. He's limited so far this week. And so last week you saw Jacobs get to take 73% of the 2-minute offense. And so that really kind of helped, you know, buffer, right? You know, what the downside of Jacobs can look like if you get in a game where you fall behind, which they could do to Dallas. And that's the danger with Jacobs, is that he can't get into the scripts. But they have been very active, man, getting the ball to the backs ever since they've lost Henry Ruggs. Like, if you look at Jacobs, like, over the last several games, Ian, like, his targets per route run, it's kind of insane. I tweeted something about that earlier, and I had somebody, you know, they hit me up and they're like, well, that's just how this offense is designed. And I'm like, yeah, it's by design now, because they don't have anyone, what you were just talking about, to really threaten the, you know, the long boundary of the field. But it doesn't really matter for fantasy, right? All you care is, are they getting more targets? And they are. So targets per route run for the last 3 weeks for Jacobs, 25%, 26%, 35%. So that helps him a little bit. That makes me feel more comfortable, because we were raking him as a low end, you know, RB2, knowing that his floor was really more like an RB3. I think he's pretty solid in that spot now, because of how much they're using their backs in the passing game. As far as the Cowboys go, Ezekiel Elliott did get dinged up in this game on Sunday, but he's practiced so far. He's not even listed as questionable for the game on Thursday, so that's good news for Zeke. I don't know that he'll be 100%, but he's definitely going to suit up. He'll play. If you look at Vegas, it's an average matchup, you know, by like the metrics that we really look at, you know, through PFF, like, you know, how good is the defensive line? How good are their linebackers? All these sorts of things. But if you look at it just from a pure fantasy standpoint, like defensive points against for running backs, 26.6 is what the Raiders give up, which is in the top 7. So it's a good matchup for Zeke. You know, he'll obviously still give some of his work to Tony Pollard, but I've got him in running back 13 right now. Dak, I've got Ian. I've got him at quarterback 7. I'm just a little worried. Like, I'm not worried about Vegas. Like, they've been a better defense than what people thought they would be, but I'm not that worried about them in the passing game. It's just more that we're not going to have Amari Cooper for sure, and it's looking like we may not have CeeDee Lamb as well.
It looks like, just real quick, it looks like Tyron Smith, because he got in a full practice today, and that was the first time he's done that since he got hurt. So, yes, not looking good for the receivers, but hopefully Tyron Smith at least will be back.
Which would be good. Like, it's been really hard not having Tyron Smith, so that will be huge to get him back. So tomorrow is a huge day for CeeDee Lamb, so we'll keep an eye on that for you guys. We'll be updating the rankings. If CeeDee can get out there and do his thing tomorrow, and then you have a shot Thursday to get cleared. But it's really tough, man, when you have a concussion to get turned around for a Thursday game. I don't even know what the percentages are on it, Ian. I haven't read anything.
The fact that the fact that he couldn't even get limited on Tuesday, man, I think he's out.
Yeah. So I'm not even putting him in my rankings right now. So I do have Michael Gallup inside my top. I've got him at wide receiver 17 right now. Gallup has really struggled against man coverage this year, and he's He's more of a, now Dak will still throw it to him. His targets per route run against man is still really strong. He's more of kind of their jump ball guy. Like Dak trusts him in those contested spots. But really, to get the consistent looks that you want from a receiver, like you also need to be able to separate. You need to be able to work the stuff underneath. And we've seen Gallup do that historically. It's on a small sample, so I'm not going to get overly worried about it. Look, he's going to be the one mouth to feed. And here's the good news. Vegas doesn't use man. They use man coverage the second least in the NFL. So Gallup should be in a good spot of seeing plenty of zone coverage. I've got him at, like I said, 17. And then if you look at Dalton Schultz, I'm really excited about Schultz this weekend. Ian, like the more and more I think about him, I've got him at tight end 6. He's been up over 80% of the routes run. You know, he's going to probably have a shot to get 25, 30% of the targets. And if you look at the matchup, it's a plus as well. So Dalton Schultz, Michael Gallup, you know, are going to pretty much, they're must starts this weekend. Zeke is at 13. And then I have Pollard down where I normally have him. There's nothing super about this game. He could get a little more work because Zeke, you know, is a little dinged up.
Bills at the Saints as our Thursday evening matchup. Buffalo sitting as a 5.5-point favorite, up from where they opened at just 2 points. Game total at 46, down from opening at 52. So can't do the backfield. Can't do it. We got 3 of them. We can't do it. Bills are dead last in carries by running backs this year, just 18th in targets. We could barely get behind the situation when it was just Zach Moss and Devin Singletary. Now that we put Breida in the thick of it, nope. Can't do it. Don't start him. Moving on, Josh Allen, the roller coaster, everyone. And I love Josh Allen. I loved Josh Allen before it was cool to love Josh Allen because he was always entertaining even when he wasn't really good at playing quarterback. You know, sometimes this happens and you have a guy like Josh Allen get really good at quarterback. Other times I'm still sitting here, you know, cheering on Drew Lock as he doesn't play a single snap basically all year. So I'm not equating the two. All I'm trying to say here is that Josh Allen has had a lot of bad moments this year, and that is just an objective fact. I'm going to use PFF passing grade for this stat, but you can pull out yards per attempt, QB rating, whatever. They're all the same. Like Josh this year in week 1 was 16th among quarterbacks in PFF passing grade. Since then, he has either finished in the top 10 or outside the top 24. Like he hasn't had okay games. He's either been a world beater or he's really sucked. And honestly, I think it could even be worse because this year leads the league with 10 dropped interceptions through 10 weeks. I mean, Dwain, like this is why I love PFF stats, because you can actually go in and with our big time throws, with our turnover worthy plays, dropped interceptions, stuff like that, it gives you a more clear story of the box score while still allowing you to quantify it. So if you look at Josh's stats on the year, you see the 21 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. You might think he's doing a decent enough job taking care of the ball. But if you take those 10 dropped interceptions, add them to the 8 interceptions he does have, he leads the league in combined interceptions and drop picks with 18. Next closest guy is only in 16, has 16 of, again, dropped and combined total interceptions. So we'll see what happens. I mean, Josh, 2 weeks ago, was our second highest graded quarterback of the week. Last week, pre-Monday Night Football, he was 29. So it really is just one or the other. I think, you know, gun to my head, by the end of this year, I won't get too dark on this, Dwayne. I should have gone with the Girl Scout example there, but we'll work on it. Either way, with Josh, you know, this is just a real life thing. In fantasy, even when he does have the bad game, he's still running around enough. He's still throwing enough to make it work. But just something to really keep an eye on with Josh, where let's try to at least get a floor, man, because right now his floor has been one of the worst quarterbacks of the week. And again, we have now seen that on 4 occasions already this year. So Josh Allen, you're still starting him, but just keep an eye on his consistency here moving forward. And then with the wide receivers, luckily we got back some normal snaps for Cole Beasley. Not, you know, 90% or anything like that, but we've seen that, him being the slot receiver, not in 2 wide receiver sets. He's not going to be out there having a super big snap rate. We just couldn't have the 9 total snaps from week 10. So I do think Stephon Diggs is going to catch that Marshawn Lattimore shadow. You're starting Diggs regardless, just, you know, a fun, entertaining matchup to keep your eye on. I could see it being a little bit tougher for Diggs than usual, but it's Stephon Diggs. I think otherwise, where it's Sanders and Beasley is where we can get back to feeling good about them, you know, as wide receiver 3 types. So Diggs, get him out there. You know, this is the 10th worst defense in PPR points per game allowed to opposing wide receivers. And I think Manny Sanders and Beasley, for you guys, you know, going out there playing some DFS on Thursday or just season long filling the lineup, they continue to be more than solid options and perhaps could be booming if they have Lattimore and additional coverage shifted to Diggs' direction. So yeah, hopefully, you know, Dwayne, we get the better version of Josh Allen all the time. But with that said, again, pre-2020 Josh Allen was still fun. I'm old enough to remember in his first playoff game with like a minute left in the fourth quarter, him chucking the ball over his head to his fullback trying to make a play. So players can still be fun to watch, even if they're bad sometimes, and you got to give them credit when that is the case. So, Dwayne, I got a lot to say about the Bills. With the Saints, man, we just need these guys to get healthy because as things stand, neither Alvin Kamara nor Mark Ingram are practicing. It seems like maybe Ingram's isn't that big of a deal. We had Nick Underhill from New Orleans .football, one of the best beat writers in the business, particularly for the Saints. He did bring up that the Tuesday practice was basically a glorified walkthrough, so we can't put too much stock into that, but we are a couple injury designations to the guys away from it being Tojo season. We're back.
Yeah, man. Ingram had a limited practice on Monday, and then, like you said, the DNP today. So I'm not moving Ingram down my ranks yet. My guess is, he's a veteran. They're taking it easy with him unless we hear differently tomorrow. So I've got Ingram right now at RB11, and it's mostly just a utilization thing. Ingram has played well, like for, being a guy that everybody thought was completely washed. And I'm sure he's loving life actually being, with New Orleans instead of being where he was with the Texans, playing with a coach that just knows how to manufacture touches for running backs, which we love in fantasy football. But over the last 2 weeks, Ingram snaps 85%, 72%, rushing percentage 67%, 76%, routes 61% and 68%, targets 13 and 23, targets per route run 17 and 30. Like I'm not going to keep going on. Like everything sounds that way. Like, so when you get that, look, it means they're an RB1 because volume is the number one thing. So Buffalo, yes, they can be a bit stingy, against the run, but we saw Jonathan Taylor, who's obviously elite, much different story than Mark Ingram at this point in his career. Jonathan Taylor went nuts last week. Yeah, just a little bit last week, but still the volume's going to be there. So even if he just averages 3 yards a carry, but he gets involved in the passing game, and he's getting used a lot at the end of these games when Trevor Siemian does the Trevor Siemian dance, in the fourth, it's instead of a rain dance, it's the Siemian dance. But it was kind of like you mentioned, it was like the Jalen Hurts thing we were seeing earlier in the year. But here's the good thing, like with the Saints, like as much as, yes, Siemian has been kind of living, by like the skin of his teeth, like the offense overall, like if you look at it over the last three to 4 weeks, like they're actually viable. Like there's enough, even though it's not a great team, like there are enough yards to go around to actually support a couple of options. So Mark Ingram got him at running back 11. We'll keep an eye. Who knows? Maybe Kamara gets out there and practices tomorrow, but it looks like he's trending towards not playing. If Mark Ingram were to sit this one out, Ian, I have not ranked Tony Jones yet. He's just in one of my tiers. He's down towards the bottom. Last week, he was only out there 15% of the snaps, 14% of the rushes. So really not someone you can use. It would take Mark Ingram being out of this game to feel comfortable using Tojo. I would probably slot him in somewhere around between RB 18 and 22. It's kind of a tough week because we got James Robinson getting healthier. We're probably getting Kareem Hunt back. Leonard Fournette keeps doing his thing. You got Myles Gaskin in another good matchup, and he's been getting the snaps. You're getting Elijah Mitchell probably comes back this week. So it's kind of hard to get him higher than those guys. But once you get past those and Antonio Gibson, get down to like Josh Jacobs, Miles Sanders, those guys, I would probably put Tojo ahead of them just because there's a chance he could be the every down back. That's about where I would fit him in. So, and I'll update that obviously once we have more information. As far as the receivers go for the Saints, Tre'Quan Smith, we talked about it on the recap show Sunday night or Monday. Ian, his season high as far as routes run. It's the second week in the row that he's led the team. It's his third week that he's been up over 85%. So Tre'Quan really is the number one option on the team right now as far as being out there. It's not a good matchup though against the Bills. It's a 2.9 out of 10 on the PFF wide receiver strength of schedule metric. It's an 8.2 out of 100 on the wide receiver cornerback matchup. So probably a better day just to stay away from Tre'Quan and the rest of these receivers for the Saints. It could be one of those 200-yard passing days, and we don't really know where it's going to go. I can tell you one place it won't be going, though, is Adam Trautman, who had been really looking good, and Simeon does like him some Adam Trautman, even though he's not out there, for the amount of routes that we really like to see. He doesn't get to that 80% mark, but his targets per route run have been really good because he's got that connection with his quarterback. He did not practice either of the first 2 days of the week, and he was listed as doubtful.
He's out. He's out 4 to 6 weeks, man.
Yep. And so he is out. Yep, he was put on IR. Okay, so he is gone. with an MCL injury, so we will not see Troutman. I don't even know who the next tight end. We got Jawan Johnson, but he does not play enough.
Dwayne, I was actually just looking this up as you were going through it because, as always, we record our lovely waiver pod on Monday evening, and about 20 minutes after we were done, we got the Troutman news. So with that in mind, Jawan Johnson was a healthy scratch last week. They got Nick Vanette back for the first time all season, so he actually debuted for the Saints last week. And I think
he's really a blocker.
Yeah.
So you could see Jawan get more of the receiving snaps. That's really what Troutman was doing, was getting more of the receiving snaps. But Vanette is really known for, being a blocker.
Central Ohio boys, we can do it all, Dwayne. But no, I hear you. I just wonder, how many snaps is Jawan even going to play? He'll definitely be active now. But hey, if we're doing the showdown slate, if we're trying to have fun on Thanksgiving, go take down a tournament or something, do you go with Jawan? Because I feel like he's going to be the obvious, trendy. Troutman's out. Let's get it. I think Vanette could be the one actually that's going to be playing the most. Now, will he be getting design targets? No, but I don't think they were trying to necessarily. Simeon liked Troutman. Maybe he was throwing the ball a little more. Maybe I'm galaxy braining too much here, Dwayne, but I think Vanette could actually be the better play over Jawan.
I never go with Nick Vanette, but I think if you want to have fun and if you like losing money and that's fun, then I would definitely go with Vanette. I'm just messing with you. Yeah, no,
you're so nice.
I mean, I'm messing with you, man. Look, hey, you know your way to my heart. Utilization. You just told me he's going to be out there, Dwayne. You had me at hello. If he's going to be out there, there's always a chance. Honestly, if I'm going and we're not doing a showdown show, but in those cases, I would rather go with someone like a Traquan and just hope he burns somebody because I know most people will be off of him because of the matchup. So anyway, I'll probably stay away from the tight ends.
I was about to say, if you're going to go with a tight end on that slate, I think Dalton Schultz. If you want to go chalky, just go get Dalton Schultz. I like that call as him. Tight end 6 on the week. That's going to wrap up the Thanksgiving games on to Sunday. We got the Steelers at the Bengals. Cincy, we've had some wild line swings since opening here. Cincy is now favored by 4.5 points. Apparently opened as Steelers -3. Game total holding steady at 45. So it was, Big Ben. Watched him live for a little bit of the second half in that Sunday night game. Dwayne and I always record really during the first half of that, so didn't see the whole game. And I was looking at him, and I just saw a couple of series. We get the whiskey out after the pod. I'm not necessarily as tuned in as I always would be. Pull up the numbers on Monday, rewatch a little bit. Yeah, he's just as bad as always. This is continuing to be just the worst year of Ben Roethlisberger's career. Only 5 quarterbacks have a PFF passing grade below 60 this season. Here's the company Big Ben's in. Roethlisberger, Jared Goff, Zach Wilson, Tyrod Taylor, and our guy Mike White. So, yeah, not great for Big Ben. Still someone that we just need to hope can exist long enough and well enough to just enable his receivers because we know we're not getting anything from him. But the good thing that Pittsburgh is doing for us is giving us one of the most fantasy-friendly workloads we've really ever seen to Najee Harris. We have expected points. It's a really great tool I think you can use on PFF.com. Part of one of the things you can get if you use that code Cyber40, get 40% off any PFF subscription. But anyway, we have these expected points. We're just measuring workload here. And going back to all of our data with it, which I believe goes back to 2018, the top 3 running backs in expected PPR points per game. Number 1 is 2020 Christian McCaffrey. Number 2 is 2019 Christian McCaffrey. Number 3 is Najee Harris. So, yeah, he has not been good with his opportunities this year. 40th graded running back in PFF rushing grade. But we don't care. We got the volume, RB6 and PPR points per game, and only Jonathan Taylor has more weeks as a top 12 fantasy RB1 than Najee Harris. So got to be loving him if you managed to scoop him up in round 2 back in August. So obviously starting Najee in every single league, even if there's a fire. And then with the wide receivers, Deontay Johnson, man, just keeps on keeping on. He had 100+ yards and a touchdown last week, but we still haven't seen just the multi-touchdown, the 150, the monster game, and it hasn't mattered, man. He's the wide receiver 10 in PPR points per game. Just brought up those expected points. The only wide receivers with more expected points than Deontay this year, Cooper Kupp, Tyreek Hill, Calvin Ridley, and Devontae Adams. Like, that's why we target guys like Deontay Johnson, because even if they aren't as good as those other receivers I just listed, they can fall off and not be as good, and they're still sitting as a wide receiver 10. So also think that Chase Claypool, coming off a nice wide receiver 26 finish, he's a boomer bust wide receiver 3. I'm feeling good about that now. We wanted to get him in that top 24, but I think with the way Big Ben's playing just overall this year, and with Deontay soaking up so much target share, it's going to be tough to see too much consistency from Claypool, but we know he's good. We know he has the boom potential. Just realize he's not someone we need to jam in lineups the same way as Deontay. And in later news that we got just before his podcast started, Dwayne, Eric Ebron is expected to actually miss potentially significant time with a knee injury. We are back in on Pat Freiermuth. You said you have Schultz at tight end 6, Dwayne, which I think is fair. CD, Cooper out, but Freiermuth might have to be like tight end 7 at that point. That was the only concern. Having Ebron there, now that he's gone, all wheels go for Pat Freiermuth. Does that sound right to you?
I have him at 8, so I have Schultz at 6, Gesicki at 7, and I've got Freiermuth at 8.
Love it. I love it, Dwayne. I love Pat Freiermuth, particularly now that he doesn't have to split reps, which was all we were worried about. So start Freiermuth, start Deontay, start Najee. Feeling pretty good about Claypool, and that is that. Just real quickly on the shadow matchups, I do think we'll see Deontay Johnson get tracked by Chidobe Awuzie and Claypool with Eli Apple. So that matchup, if you actually remember that initial meeting they had, Claypool was racking up air yards. It just was one of those games. I think I'm thinking about the right one because I sent a freaking helicopter out on the guy and just obviously fell face first on the call. But yeah, this was it. 15 targets for Claypool against Eli Apple in that game. He had all sorts of air yards. They just couldn't connect. So Eli Apple, I do think he's played a little bit better in the first part of the year. But if you wanted to try to go for Claypool, I think in DFS settings, I'd really be more interested in him as a tournament play. We know he has that boom. It's just tough to get him too high up in the ranks because we also know how low that floor can be with Big Ben under center. So keep an eye out on that, and also keep an eye out on Dwayne, a consistent RB1 by the name of Joe Mixon. With that said, where are these targets, man? We know he can catch the ball, but all of a sudden we got Samaje Perine and Chris Evans making Mixon's utilization a bit closer to a borderline RB1, I think, than the top 5 guy we were hoping he would be.
Yeah, I mean, he's RB6 right now in the season, but he's got 6 touchdowns in the last 3 games, 5 of them rushing. So, I mean, he's getting plenty of work inside the 5. He's the short down and distance back. He's in a good offense. So there's a lot of positives, right, around Mixon. But he's not insulated from bad game scripts because we've seen, to your point, we've seen the routes go down. We've seen the targets go down. His routes over the last 3 games have gone from 59% to 51% to 44%. So they're giving him plenty of work, as far as dominating really all the rushing touches. He's had 88%, 54, and 86% of the rushing touches, but it's just been more of a, and some of this is they just try to balance these guys out, Ian. So like if they give them all this run on the ground, sometimes they're just trying to protect them, right? They don't want them to have 40 touches a game if they can avoid it. So Perine has been more involved. We did get Chris Evans back in action. He took over the 2-minute offense pretty much for the most part this last week. But really, Perine and Evans now they're kind of sharing time behind Mixon, and it's mostly, like you said, on the passing down. So I've got Joe Mixon at running back 10 this week. The Steelers aren't quite as stout as they have been just with all the injuries that they're dealing with. So they're giving up 22.9 points per game to opposing running backs, which is really right around the average, for fantasy points allowed. But I think they're a little bit weaker than that right now.
Yeah, Dwayne, I found a cool stat with that, backing up your point. People helping people here. Let's do it. Only the Vikings and Jets have allowed more rushing yards before contact than the Steelers this season. Not your grandpa's Steelers steel curtain, some might say.
I think you've got a difference in the way that they're playing linebacker too. Like with Bush is a great sideline to sideline guy, but like as far as like plugging the hole, like there's a difference. I got Mixon at 10. As far as the passing game goes, I've got Joe Burrow at quarterback 7 right now, which is right around where I've got him for the rest of the season ranks anyway. It's a decent matchup. I'll have to see, are we going to have Hayden back for the Steelers? I'm pulling up the Steelers injury report. You may already have it. No, I don't see anything. We were without Hayden and Minkah Fitzpatrick last week. So if you get that matchup again, that's obviously a plus for Burrow. But even if they're playing in, I don't care. Like, because Joe Burrow has Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Tyler Boyd. I really don't care what defense Joe Burrow is facing. It's really hard. Like, it only moves the needle of a little bit for me. The thing that's holding Joe Burrow down is really the fact that they still aren't running a lot of plays, and they have shown a willingness to lean into the running game whenever they need to or whenever they get a lead, right? They don't just keep the odometer or the speedometer pegged to the floor like some of these other offenses do in the passing game. Having said all that, I've got Jamar Chase in my second tier of receivers this week. I've got him right now at wide receiver 7, one behind Justin Jefferson and one ahead of Terry McLaurin. His matchup is, like we said, neutral, but again, I don't care. He's a great player. Now, Chase has not been someone, Ian, who every single week, has really given us, these huge weeks. He's been a little more boom bust, but for the most part, like, he's always in the top 36. When you look at the Bengals receivers this year, typically one of the 3 has been left out every single game, from the top 36. We've only had one game out of the games they've all been healthy together where all 3 made it into the top 36. And that goes back to the volume issue that I was talking about earlier. They're just not throwing the ball enough, and some of it is due to game script. But they lean a little bit more neutral in the way that they want to handle their play calling, really in all game situations. So I don't know that that's going to change. But Jamar Chase has been the safest. So if you look at Chase on the season, we've got finishes 15, 39, 7, 30, 7, 25, 2, 26, 31, 28. So even when he misses, he's still giving you that, he's usually hanging around the wide receiver 3 territory. Had a couple of weeks where he slipped past that. But what you're looking for is we want some more of those booms. We've had the 7, 7, and a 2. Like, I'm ready for a 1. Let's see, let's make it happen this weekend. T. Higgins, if you look at his utilization, still great. I know he bombed last week, but it's kind of part of what I was just talking about. Whenever we look at the way that this works out, Tyler Boyd actually did okay last week. And so what happened? T. Higgins was just the odd player out, but it wasn't because he wasn't running as many routes or anything like that. He only had 9% targets per route run, but he's at 23% on the season. He's still leading the team in targets per route run. That's ahead of Jamar Chase, who's at 22%. So I still believe in T. Higgins. It just so happened that last week it was Tyler Boyd's turn. So you just kind of got to live with it, man. It was a wide receiver 73 finish for T in week 11, where it was Boyd, it was a 28. But I've got T. Higgins right now ranked inside. He's in my 4th tier, and I have him at wide receiver 22. Like, he could end up outside of my top 24, but he'll be somewhere right around there. And then I have Tyler Boyd in my tier 5. And so he's I usually have him down at the bottom of my wide receiver 3 tier, sometimes the top of my wide receiver 4 tier. And so that's where I've got him as well this week. CJ Uzomah, you guys know, like, it's a major hit or miss with that guy. Like, if it's this tough for the receivers, it's really hard for Uzomah to get involved. So he's really only just a punt play.
If we had 2020 pass game volume, like, I don't think any of this would be an issue. Yeah. That's not the game we're playing, though. Burrow already has 7 games with fewer than 35 pass attempts this year. He only had 2 such games like that all of last year. But yeah, Dwayne, you mentioned, like, with or without those defenders, obviously for everyone trying to play Burrow, you would rather have the Steelers defense be at, the least of their powers as possible. They played in week 3, and Burrow threw 3 touchdowns on just 18 attempts with Minka, with Hayden in the picture. TJ Watt was out then, but it's looking like that will be the case once again. Don't be surprised if we see some fireworks from this Bengals passing attack. We got the Panthers at the Dolphins. Carolina sitting as a 1.5-point favorite after Miami opened at 4.5. Game total all the way down to 42.5 after opening at 51.5. What the hell was that person smoking? But yeah, we talked about Cam a lot on the waiver wire edition of this podcast. We can check out on the Tuesday show. But yeah, basically he has the rushing upside at this point and just the floor, that's what rushing gives you. It gives you a nice ceiling and floor combo, more fantasy points either way. And he is going to be a low-end QB1 moving forward. I just really hope that this cover 0 that we saw the Dolphins really thwart Lamar Jackson with doesn't, really impact this Panthers offense the same way. I do think it'll be quite a bit tougher to, leave McCaffrey, DJ Moore in one-on-one coverage and not get absolutely torched by it. So not too worried about that. Cam Newton, top 12 quarterback. Right, Dwayne? Are you going top 12 or top 15?
I've got Cam Newton at number 10 right now.
Let's go. Let's freaking go. Not top 12, top 10 from Mr. McFarland. I will replicate that myself. And yeah, then we got Christian McCaffrey. And I think we just take it for granted sometimes, Dwayne. McCaffrey, I brought the expected points before. His volume is unbelievable, and he could be a fifth of the player that he is now and still be a solid fantasy guy. But he's not. He is truly probably the best running back in, I don't want to say the best running back. Jonathan Taylor's doing incredible things. He is a top 5, top 3, whatever you want to say, real life talent at the position, independent of the absurd workload. Like, I just literally watched every single one of his receptions this morning. And these poor linebackers that get matched up on him and these option routes, man, it is not even fair. And like, sometimes they'll be close and then all of a sudden it's just McCaffrey running away from them in the open field. So only 4 finishes this year with a fully healthy game. RB1, RB3, RB4, and RB3. McCaffrey might as well be a cheat code in fantasy and real life football. Enjoy watching him play every week we get. And then finally with DJ Moore, try to find a way to start him. I get it. He's sliding down the ranks. There was a time where we had him as like a legit top 10 guy every single week. He's still tied for 5th with a 29% target share though this year. And he's 6th in air yard share of 42%, only behind Jamar Chase, Devontae Smith, Brandon Cooks, Terry McLaurin, and Justin Jefferson. Pretty great company to be in. So we have seen Robbie Anderson start to get a little more involved in recent weeks, but come on, we know who the number 1 is here in Carolina. It is DJ Moore. So try to get DJ Moore in there. Obviously McCaffrey and Cam Newton deserves the benefit of the doubt as well. I am expecting Xavier Howard to be tracking Robbie Anderson in shadow coverage, and we should get Byron Jones on DJ Moore, so keep an eye out for those. But as great of names as those cornerbacks have, and I know they have great contracts too, we just haven't seen that really carry over in the fantasy production. I mean, hell, Byron shadowed Mike Evans and Xavier shadowed Antonio Brown earlier this year. Both those guys scored 2 touchdowns in those matchups in that very game. Not trying to say DJ and Robbie are exact replicas to Evans and AB. I'm just saying, again, with shadow matchups, it's a good tiebreaker, and I just don't think it should really scare you off of getting behind DJ Moore in this one. That's Dwayne. We got the Dolphins. You hinted at it earlier, but the Myles Gaskin workload, man, it is here. And I know we got an even week, and he has not balled out well in even weeks. But Dwayne, I'm willing to maybe put that phenomenon aside and still roll the dice with Myles Gaskin. What say you?
Yeah, I think you have to this week. I mean, against Carolina, as far as the running back strength of schedule goes, it's an 8.6 out of 10. Even though technically, like if you look at defensive points against for running back, this is one of those interesting ones where like our metrics and the way we measure it versus just raw fantasy points, they kind of contrast, which I love having those 2 different data points because it just gives me another view on like how things are working and how we can think about these games. But it's 18.7 points per game allowed to opposing running backs so far for Carolina. So they've been pretty stingy, but here's the good thing for Gaskin.
It's all from the passing. They're literally number 1 in fewest receptions and receiving yards. Against the actual run, they're not great.
Right. So
that's where it comes from.
So the thing with Gaskin, though, is like a lot of his points come through the air, right? That's really because the Dolphins are not very efficient on the ground, and Gaskin hasn't been very good on the ground. It's been really more about his involvement in the passing game. If you look at the last 3 weeks, 15% of the targets, 6% of the targets, 13% of the targets. And what you're saying makes sense. Like when you just think about the way the Panthers defense is built and the speed that they have, sideline to sideline. But when you look at Gaskin, so he does depend on that. So that could be a little bit of an issue. But I still have him at running back 17. Look, you got a running back that's been out there for 72%, 60%, and 74% of the snaps. Rushing attempts, 80, 67, 72%. Routes, he's over 50% every week. I already talked about the targets. He's getting most of the 2-minute offense now. Really, the only thing he's not getting anymore is the long down and distance, and that's just going to Patrick Laird because you got a Patrick Laird. You know, you have to do it at some point. So with Gaskin, I've got him at running back 17 right now, and I've got Elijah Mitchell 1 spot below him. If Mitchell's playing, I wouldn't blame anybody if they're like, I'm going to move Mitchell above Gaskin. That's fine. But the matchup overall on the ground itself is pretty good. So Gaskin does have a chance here to score a touchdown. As far as the passing attack goes, look, I know Tua hasn't been, exceptional, or anything as far as like real football goes. But for me, they're doing a lot of nice things that I like from a fantasy perspective. Number 1, the Dolphins throw the ball no matter what. Trailing by 4 or more, they're plus 8% versus the NFL average. Within 3 points, they're plus 6%. Leading by 4 or more, they're plus 7%. Neutral first downs, they're plus 5%. And passing inside the 5-yard line, they're plus 9%. So Tua is just one of these quarterbacks that, like, he falls into these, even if his performance isn't that great, he falls into these top 12 performances a lot. Really, his biggest issue this year has been injury more than anything from a fantasy perspective. Like if you look at the last 2 games, he's got finishes of 10 and 12. It's probably 13 after Brady played last night. My numbers are still from pre-Monday Night Football on my ranks. So Tua is in a spot where I don't love it. It's not a great matchup. But like if you had to use him, I think he'll be in my top 20 quarterbacks this week. But the bigger thing is he's got enough there to really support the guys that we want to play, which are Jalen Waddle and maybe Ian, we get Will Fuller back. We'll see.
Come on, Will.
I've got Jalen Waddle at wide receiver 24 right now. And if you look at him, over the last 3 weeks, I mean, like, early in the season, we'd see these games where his routes would dip down to like 70%, right, or 75%. We have not seen that in a long time. Routes are up over 90%. Targets, 26%, 19%, 28%. Like, Jalen Waddle is like just out here doing his thing. He's going to he'll finish inside, right now he's on pace to finish inside the top 24 receivers as a rookie, which is an awesome accomplishment. I know a lot of it still does come on lower ADOT stuff, but they have been pushing it down the field a little bit more. And man, maybe just maybe we get one of these big plays from Waddle. We know he has the speed. We know he has the electricity to do it. They just need to get it to him a little bit further down the field. So Fuller, if he does play, I do not have him ranked yet because I'm just waiting to see what's going to happen. But if Fuller does play, let's just put it, I mean, it's a wide open rotation on the outside. I think he immediately steps into that lead role. I mean, right now we're dealing with Preston Williams and Matt Collins and Albert Wilson, and they're all just rotating. And the Dolphins are playing a ton of 12 and 13 personnel, getting 3 tight ends on the field. So I think you probably see Will Fuller in his debut probably hit 70 to 80% of the routes, and he could build from there. And look, with them throwing the ball enough, like Fuller's out there enough, he gets some one-on-ones, we could see him break a few big plays, and he could have a big week, especially if you're looking at a DFS type situation. And then Mike Gesicki, I already talked about it earlier whenever we talked about Dalton Schultz, but I've got him at tight end 7 on the week. The matchup is a little bit tougher, but look, Gesicki's out there all the time, so you got to keep using him.
Yeah, it's a great point on Fuller because when he came back and made his debut, actually, he was at 61% snaps, and they were really feeding him air yards in that overtime game they had against the Raiders. So with Fuller, like, we really are just hoping that he connects on 1, maybe 2 of those deep balls. Anyway, yeah, I don't need to wait to see a full snap rate. And season long, it would be nice to really feel good about it, but getting Contrarian in a tournament, sign me up. Another squad that has a suddenly awfully productive first-round wide receiver balling out. Philadelphia Eagles at the New York Giants. Philly sitting as a 4-point favorite. Seem to open at Giants -3. Again, another confunneling one. We got the game total sitting at 46. So Jalen Hurts, the QB1 now in Fantasyland. He has been a top 12 quarterback in every single game that he has played, at least the first. He's played, I should say, the full 4 quarters, and that is 13 of 15 career starts. So gotta love that. And really, it just comes down to this rushing upside, which is absolutely bonkers. I pulled this on Monday, so maybe Leonard Fournette found a way to change this, but either way, it's ridiculous. The only players, running backs, quarterbacks, whoever, with more fantasy points from strictly rushing production than Jalen Hurts this year: Jonathan Taylor, Derrick Henry, Joe Mixon, James Conner, Nick Chubb, Ezekiel Elliott. That is it. We're basically getting Jalen Hurts as like a running back where, hey, we have a ton of points from the ground game, and whatever he throws for, that's extra. So continue to start Hurts with all the confidence in the world. And now we just need to see what's going on with this backfield. So we know Jordan Howard is going to be missing some time with the knee injury. Dwayne, you mentioned this on our Sunday night podcast, and I went back in and looked at the specific numbers with it, but we did actually see Miles Sanders post-fumble not have the same role. It was looking pretty damn good before that fumble. He played 15 snaps, 7 carries. Boston Scott had no touches on 4 snaps. Jordan Howard just 1 carry on 2 snaps. That was in the first 4 drives of the game. So I don't know, man, that's like pretty legit. If it was first 2 or 3, okay, but first 4 I think is a little more telling. After that, Sanders and Boston Scott each had 20 carries. Scott had 20 snaps, I should say. Scott had 6 carries. Howard had 9 carries. Sanders had 9 carries. Like, it literally went from the Miles Sanders show before the fumble back to a muddled 3-back mess afterwards. So what's it going to be on Sunday? I don't know. Nobody knows, because how the hell could you know with what we've seen from this backfield? That's why with Sanders, I get it. You should be feeling better about starting him this week. It's a winnable matchup. But even then, Dwayne, like, low-end RB2 is going to be the highest I want to go. In my mind, I want to rank Sanders as like the RB25. I don't want to give him the top 24 treatment, but it might be tough to say no. Where'd you settle on him so far?
I've actually got him at 22 right now.
Okay.
But he's, fair. I think it makes sense where he's at, because you get into the Melvin Gordon, Javonte Williams area, which he's going to be in a split like they are, right? You're getting into that Devonta Freeman, Josh Jacobs. Like, he's right in there, and I've got him below Jacobs and Antonio Gibson and just ahead of Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams. You could argue and swap like those, and I would be fine. Like, I think that's fine, but I think that's the tier that he probably belongs in. Damian Harris slipped out of that tier this week just because we don't know for sure what's happening with him and Ramondre Stevenson. So I would have him ahead of Damian Harris, but that could easily flip back next week, right? So that's where I've got him.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. When I wrote up my running back article, I break down every backfield. You guys can check that on pff.com on Wednesdays. I literally wrote about Damon Harris that, like, I prefer him over Stevenson straight up, but they're now basically treated in a similar manner as the Broncos guys. Like, we got to put them both in that RB3 range. So I think that's a great line. If you want to put Gibson or Jacobs ahead of Sanders, that's fine. If you want to put him ahead, that's fine. But yeah, where the Broncos and where the Patriots backs comes in, I think that's where you got to start Sanders ahead of those guys. And then finally, just with the passing game, and it goes through two guys. Devontae Smith, last 3 weeks, 116 yards and a touchdown, 66 yards and 2 touchdowns. Last week, 61 scoreless yards. The problem now, we just can't really get the targets that we want. He's only had one game with more than 6 targets since week 6. He's getting all the air yards in the world, though. I mean, he is tied with Jamar Chase for the league high with a 45% of the Eagles' air yards. Hey, we've seen the upside. The problem is there's only so much the guy can do when he's getting 5-6 targets per game. So Devontae, he might have some of the underlying metrics that would make you think he could have like wide receiver 1, legit wide receiver 1 upside down the stretch. Gotta treat him as more of a low end wide receiver 2, probably more likely upside wide receiver 3. And then finally with Dallas Goedert, give the guy a break. I know Zach Ertz has been doing some good things in Arizona, but we can go through that as well. With Goddard, he just got concussed 2 weeks ago. He has been maybe the most unlucky player in terms of sheeshes that I've been tracking, maybe all season, at least in the last month. And I don't want to just take this 4-game stretch and be like, he's not going to produce anything. He had what I thought was a touchdown last week. They ruled him just short of the goal line, but it looked like he rolled over the guy into the end zone.
He had 2 last week, didn't he?
So he had
sheeshes.
He had 2 sheeshes. He had the first one that like should have just been a straight up touchdown. The second one got nullified on an offensive pass interference penalty. So should have at least had 1, if not 2. And a couple of weeks ago, like we talked about in the Chargers game, I believe, maybe it was even the Broncos game, where he was wide open for a 50-yard score early on, and Jalen Hurts just sailed it on him. So I am going back to the well with Goddard. The way we've had some of these situations emerge, like, I get it. He's maybe not locked in as like the top 6 guy we thought he was going to be every single week. With the way this Eagles run offense is just becoming the most run heavy offense in the entire league, really, over the past month or so. I think behind Schultz, behind Freiermuth, behind Gesicki, you got to have him in the top 10. I still think you should feel good about starting him. I'm just saying, like, I get it if you're not necessarily going to put him a tier above these other guys. The targets are just too even. Like, Goddard is still one of so few tight ends in the league that has a chance, has a realistic, if not be expected, to lead their offense in targets during any given week. The problem is you can lead the Eagles offense in targets with like 6 or 7. Some other groups, you can get that many as the number 3 option. So that's just what it is, Dwayne.
But it is a 2-way funnel just between him and Smith, which is good. And the offense is more efficient now, right? So I think what you're trading off and not getting the 8 or 9 targets in the receiving game, like, I think there's a lot of meat left on the bone for Goddard to have a potentially huge efficiency type of game as well.
Absolutely. And I think he should still be started in more lineups than not. But we've talked about this a lot more in the last couple of weeks, man. Like, tight end is actually a little bit deeper than past years as it stands right now. Whether or not we could have seen that coming in, June, July is another conversation for another day. But either way, feeling good about Goddard still, despite this, brief lull. Devontae Smith, get him in more starting lineups than not. And Miles Sanders, feel good, just not great. And of course, we love our guy, Jalen Hurts. So in the running for fantasy MVP at this point in time. Now, Dwayne, big loss today. I'm a guy that probably spends a little too much time on Twitter, people might go out and say. And my favorite thing to do was to send, after some ridiculous usage from the New York Giants, send that tweet with the Jason Garrett train picture. And I can't do that at least until 2022 now, because the clapper is no longer clapping on the sideline. He has been released as offensive coordinator of the New York Giants. blast from the past. Freddie
He
Kitchens
embodies
will be
the
taking
spirit
over.
of a lot of other coaches, though, Ian. So I think you could still use it. I think you could still use it in spirit. Like, I think there's plenty. In fact, you could use it probably for Freddie Kitchens, who's about to start calling plays. So I think you'll be able to just
get a crude
the Freddie Kitchens thing like already.
Just get a crude Photoshop of Kitchens' face over Garrett's. That's the move. That's the move right there, Dwayne. But Jason Garrett fired aside. Let's talk about the Giants here because we saw the Monday night usage and Kadarius Toney. Say what you will about Jason Garrett. He found a way to feed that man the ball in his last hurrah.
Yeah, he must have known it was almost over. He's like, got to get Kadarius out there. Toney did suffer, a quad injury late, and he left the game, or he would have had an even bigger game. But he was out there for 64% of the pass plays. Would have been more like 80%, which would have been nice. Now, 67% of his routes are coming from the slot. So that's going to be impacted when Sterling Shepard comes back. That's kind of really with Toney, the thing that's up in the air. What happens? Do they move him outside and let him take over all of Slayton's role? Or does it just become more of a rotation across more guys and a bad offense? But yeah, Toney did look good. 26% targets per route run over the last 2 games since Kenny Galladay's been back. Kenny Galladay at 11%. That is terrible. An 11% targets per route run, and he's under 80% of the routes in both of the games back. He came back. They had the bye, so you would expect Kenny Galladay to be fully healthy. This passing game, definitely needs a shot in the arm. I don't know that Freddie Kitchens can help it, but when you look at Daniel Jones, here are just forget yards and everything, just his fantasy points. Per game, started off kind of nice, Ian, 23.4, 29.5, 14.5, 25.8. All right, hold on. Here we go. 4.8, 7.1, 14.9, 17.1, 10.1, and 9.7. Luckily, he had a week off in there where I could only tell you there's a dash for the bye week. So that was a positive for Daniel Jones that he got that dash worked in there. So it's a mess right now. Look, we knew Daniel Jones wasn't a very good quarterback. He was doing some things fantasy-wise early in the season. And we always want players to do well. It makes our job more fun. And look, it's just I'd rather root for somebody to succeed than fail. Daniel Jones is riding on the struggle bus though right now. Things just don't look good. Really, any way you cut it. The weapons are there. He has technically enough weapons. You would think the offense could do something. We'll see. Maybe the firing of Jason Garrett does do enough to spark them. You also had the return of Saquon Barkley on Monday Night Football. Played 62% of the snaps, handled 50% of the rushing attempts. Devontae Booker still split the passing down work. A little less than half to Booker. So I think, we saw this earlier in the season, and it wasn't always, Booker. There was actually a weird game early in the season, week 2, I think, where Booker was just inactive. I don't know what he had done, but I think we'll see Barkley work his way back up to really more of a full-time role. We saw McCaffrey go through this when he came back, how he started off a little bit lower. But we just need the Giants' offense to be a little better. I think within the next 2 weeks, you'll see Barkley back to that full-time 75%, 80% of the snaps.
It also looked like the game script has something to do with it because quarters 1 through 3, it was much more shifted towards Barkley. He was at 29 of 39 snaps. So he's not back at his full workload yet either way, but I think in those first 45 minutes was a little more telling.
Yeah, and they could just never get any long drives strung together either. It was a very weird kind of game, as far as the flow for the Giants. So yeah, I do think that Barkley will be back up to his 80, 85, 90% here within the next couple of weeks, and you'll be able to continue to roll with him. I don't know where he'll be this week, Ian, but it would be nice because you've got the Eagles giving up 27 points per game to opposing running backs. If you look at it from a running back strength of schedule metric at PFF, it's not great. Offensive line run blocking advantage, also not great here for the Giants. So it's not a smash matchup or anything, but there's definitely potential here for Barkley. So I've got him at running back 11 on the week. If I knew he was completely healthy, I would have him closer to probably 6 or 7. But right now, I'm going to stick with him around 11. He might end up around 12 or 13. He moved up a little bit because we know Kareem Hunt's likely to play. So that moved Nick Chubb down just a little bit because we know Chubb will have a more limited role on his team. If you look at the receiving options, we already talked about where we are with Toney, but I've got him ranked at wide receiver 37. That's mostly to do with that injury. I just wanted to keep him just outside the top 36 for now. We got to hear what's going to happen with Sterling Shepard. If Sterling Shepard comes back, I'm going to have to move him down a little bit more, even if he is healthy. Kenny Galladay's outside of my top 36. He's down in the 40 to 50 range. with him, based on the information I just shared, if Sterling Shepard does play, and I want to see some full participation from Shepard, then I think, he'll be inside the top 36 just because we know Daniel Jones loves him. Evan Ingram, you're really trying to not play him. He had a couple of nice games and then he just tailed back off, and the matchup is not good this week. The tight end matchup itself is a minus 37. It's the worst on the slate. The Eagles have done a nice job.
Ingram's we got to treat him like Dalton Schultz, essentially. I know vastly different players, but yeah, if we take away all the wide receivers, then Ingram can get his targets, but when everyone is healthy, it's just going to be hard for him to do that. Dwayne, Saquon had 6 carries and 6 targets on Monday night, and obviously no touchdowns, 30-10 loss. Where do you think he finished on the week? I
don't know, 15?
Yeah, RB19 still, man. That's
it's just it's it's like you have the really high end guys at running back, and then you have the blob of nothing immediately starts right after that, so it doesn't take a lot.
I'm just saying, man, getting those 6 catches, having this sort of role is such a cheat code. And that was I remember in the preseason and, we had so many Saquon conversations. And one of the things that people would bring up as a reason not to go after him was how bad the offense looked against the Steelers in week 1 when he had literally 9 or 10 carries for 15 yards and didn't score. And he finished as the RB23 in that game because he still caught 6 balls. So when you have these situations, there's just too much volume to bust sometimes.
Saquon has just been so unlucky, man. That ankle injury was just the chances, the way that it happened, golly, I felt so bad for him to rehab and work so hard and to be looking good, and then to just be in after a play's over and not see a player step in front of you, step on his foot, and you freaking get, one of the worst ankle sprains we've ever seen, just swell up like a watermelon. It just feel bad for Saquon. So hopefully he's nearly back to 100%.
This actually was from Saquon via NewYorkPost.com. He said, it's just a little frustrating to have to sit out again and come back and feel like how I was in week 1, getting my feet caught back up. That just comes with missing a little time. And getting my body back, I'm going to do whatever it takes to get my brain and my feet and my legs caught up together. We will be watching Saquon. Best of luck to you. We got the Titans at the Patriots. New England sitting as a 6-point favorite, opened at 1.5. Game total is down to 44.5 after opening at 48. More shuffling in this Tennessee backfield. We talked about the Dontrell Hilliard experience. Note that he got signed all the way back on October 27th. This year, hasn't been on the team for more than a month. But at this point, none of these guys have. So we got Deontay Foreman getting outrushed by Adrian Peterson. But oh wait, AP has now hit waivers. I'm not totally convinced he's done. It was from Mike Garofalo, who actually sent this out originally from NFL Network, where he said the Titans waived running back Adrian Peterson. Possible he returns. So there's a chance if he clears waivers, I think they might bring him on the practice squad, activate him for some weeks, not activate him for others. We'll see what happens. But guess what, people? You don't really need to worry about it because we just aren't playing any of these guys because McNichols should be back sooner rather than later. I'm pretty positive he did not hit IR or anything. We still got Foreman. Who the hell knows could be next? We got Phillip Lindsay now as a potential option after the Texans decided to get rid of him. Just stay away from this Titans backfield until we have more information because originally, the allure of this backfield was, hey, we'll get someone that hopefully has Derrick Henry's role or something resembling it. That's completely out of the picture. We have at least 3 running backs in the muddled offense. And not only are we not getting the role, but now this is a situation like Houston or the Jets almost, where the offense has been so bad that we just can't even get by with the limited touches that are available to begin with. In terms of EPA per play rank in weeks 1 through 8 with Henry, the Titans were 8th overall, 15th in passing, and 2nd in rushing. Since losing Derrick Henry in EPA per play, 26th overall, 23rd in passing, 27th in rushing. So at this point, I don't want anything to do with Ryan Tannehill either. I'm putting him in the Derek Carr bucket. Maybe he can get there on raw volume like we saw, last week. He throws 4 picks, but he still throws for over 300 yards. We know he's got the ability to run into the end zone, then do his cool finger roll thing. But at this point in time, especially going up against a Patriots league best scoring defense in New England, please try to find a better streamer. I think I'd rather play Tua over Ryan Tannehill this week. Is that an insane thing to say, Dwayne?
I don't think so. I mean, I was struggling with Tannehill just because not knowing who he's going to have to throw the ball to. I had him down to 16, but like I still don't feel good about it. Like, and dude, 19.25 implied points, like that's just nasty.
That is objectively gross. And yeah, with these wide receivers, like Marcus Johnson starts to show us something. He suffers a hamstring injury and he's out for the rest of the year. If A.J. Brown is active and plays through the chest injury, sounds like it's, x-rays were negative. Sounds like we will be okay there. If A.J.B. is active, you got to start him. If he is not active, then really don't start anyone from this offense if you can at all help it. As Dwayne said, whenever you're implied for fewer than 20 points, it's just going to be rough sledding. And I know we're used to looking at this Titans offense as a sort of group that, regardless of who's out there, we should be able to find a way to get some fantasy points. But as those EPA ranks I told you guys about, like this is now truly a bottom 10 offense, at least as it stands right now. So try to avoid all these Titans, at least until we see some sign that they can get back on track. Luckily, Dwayne, we do have guys back on track in New England. The problem is some of these running backs are doing a little too good, and just when it seemed like we were getting Damian Harris standing out, being that RB1 in New England, it's looking more and more like a three-back committee with Harris, with Ramondre, and Brandon Bolden. What do you make of this situation ahead of Week 12, Dwayne?
Yeah, it is looking that way. If you look at it, the snaps were 40% to Harris, 33% to Stevenson, 27% to Bolden. Then the rushing attempts were 32% to Harris, 39% to Stevenson, 3% to Bolden. But then the routes, 25% Harris, 19% Stevenson, 34% to Bolden. So it's a situation where it is a bit murky. Harris did handle 50 to 60% of the rushing attempts before Week 9. So we did see those games where we were used to, like, this is definitely like a downgrade in the role coming back. Now whether or not like maybe he was still dealing a little bit with an injury, they're bringing him back a little slower. I know he had missed the week before with a concussion, but he's had chest injuries, all sorts of stuff. Like he's been knocked out of games like more than once, like 2 or 3 times this year that I can remember. So if you look at it from a, kind of like what you were talking about earlier with Saquon Barkley versus Booker, the silver lining, or I don't know if it's a silver lining, but I think the positive you just kind of got to take away is in the first half, Harris did take 50% of the rushing attempts. 42% of Stevenson's carries literally came in the last 2 drives of the game. But still, Harris before had that closer role, right? And we've seen the Patriots defense play really well. Bill Belichick's doing his thing. So getting to be part of the 4-minute offense, in some offenses doesn't matter, but in New England it does matter. It's actually part of the role you want. You're living for the game where the Patriots are leading, and Harris is still going to be smashing people in the fourth quarter. So even though those carries did come late, it still hurts. But what we could hope is that maybe it was a situation where they just wanted to give Harris a little bit more rest, let him get back to full strength again, and then maybe we see him get some of those carries back this week. I don't know, though. Stevenson has looked good enough that, like, if they don't have to, just bang, Harris into those sort of, workloads, they may just not want to. They may think, well, Stevenson's doing well enough. Let's just let him do it. I still think Harris is the better back. I think he looks more explosive. I know a lot of people love Stevenson. I think Stevenson's the more well-rounded, like, all-purpose back. I think Stevenson can do more. But if just as far as, like, between the tackles, breaking tackles, like, Harris is just a fun back to watch, man. Like, he is nonstop, like, will never give up. Doesn't matter if he's dragging one guy and he's headbutting the next one. It's just fun to watch him. Stevenson doesn't have that same. He's much more likely to get stood up. He runs a little bit more upright. Not as powerful as Harris, but still a good back. And I think you nailed it. Like right now, I've got them both for the week in my tier 5. I've got Harris at 26. And I've got Ramondre Stevenson setting at 29 right now. I'll end up tweaking those a little bit, but that's about where they'll end. It's tough to really trust either one of them. If I had to lean to one or the other, I would still pick Harris this week. As far as the passing game goes, did you have something else on the backs that you want to mention?
No, I think you nailed it. It's unfortunate, though, that we still have Brandon Bolden there. Like, if it was just Harris and Stevenson, we could get them both in the top 24 without much of a problem, but their cups upside is just so capped with Brandon Bolden being the pass down guy. So, no, Dwayne, like, you're right. Everyone, like, we have this, like, rookie fever thing where everyone always just wants the rookie to overtake the veteran, but Harris is still very good. And just like last Thursday night, I still feel like we need to rank Harris higher.
Yeah, just 2 years ago, Harris was the one everybody wanted, right, over Sony Michel. We do get the fever, and it's natural. We do it.
Time is a flat circle, Dwayne.
Yeah, and the thing is, Harris still looks really good. Back then, Michelle looked like crap. You know what I mean? So Harris is playing well. And I think what you just said there at the end is the key takeaway. Like when you look at Harris and Stevenson, basically, look, folks, you need a touchdown. You need whichever one of these two scores a touchdown because they're not getting much work in the passing game. As far as the passing game goes, looking at Mac Jones, we had talked about earlier in the season, Ian, we had kind of had this kind of, turning of the corner, if you will, for Mac Jones, and you had kind of highlighted it because you've been a little hard on Mac Jones. And look, everybody's in love with Mac Jones now, and he's playing good football. But at the same time, like whenever I look at his passing yards, I'm like, he's not having to do a lot. Over the last 4 games, 218 yards, 139 yards, 198. That game he threw 3 touchdowns, and 207 yards. And he had 1 touchdown. So he says touchdowns passing have been 0, 1, 3, 1. And then here's the thing, though. All short of the sticks, Ian. Like, he's throwing 55% of his passes are short of the sticks. We had talked about him kind of turning that corner, was what I was mentioning earlier, as he was starting to throw the ball deep a little bit more. That's all really gone away. And here, to be fair to him, like they don't have a lot deep. We did see Derek Carr get more out of Nelson Aguilar last year with the Raiders. But before that, Aguilar had not really been known, right, as this deep threat. And he and Jones just don't seem to be on the same page. And let's be honest, like the Patriots are getting in these game scripts where they don't have to force it. And Belichick knows he's got a rookie quarterback, and he's not forcing it either. So I think that's part of it. I think we've seen enough from Mac Jones to know that he's probably going to be a decent quarterback. But right now for fantasy, you just can't use him because the Patriots don't really want to funnel the offense through him. If they need to for a game because they know that's how they win, we could see Jones have a good game. We just don't really know when that's going to be. It's really just more of this dink and dunk offense. I've got him at QB 24 on the week right now. He may move up a little bit, but not much. I've got him right there with Tyrod Taylor, Ben Roethlisberger. I got him ahead of Daniel Jones and Trevor Lawrence and Trevor Siemian. Siemian's got a brutal matchup with Buffalo this week, but just not excited about Mac Jones. Jacoby Myers does have a great matchup. Defensive points allowed to wide receivers for Tennessee, 42.7 a game. That's kind of a lot. So Jacoby, I've got him at wide receiver 36. He's just been barely hanging on to that wide receiver 3 title. But he is the most targeted Patriot, and he is pretty much every single week. Last 3 weeks, not quite as many, but still 19%, 17%, 23% of the targets. He's at 23% of the team targets on the year. So maybe we see Jacoby get another touchdown this weekend. I don't know.
That 55% number was the exact threshold I drew in my QB predictions article because I wanted to list the quarterbacks that were above 55% of their passes being short of the sticks. It's a terrible group to be in. We do have Mac Jones, Daniel Jones, Teddy Bridgewater, Derek Carr, Carson Wentz, Tua, Mike White, Jared Goff, and in first or last place, as we would put it, Big Ben Roethlisberger on the year. Only Jimmy G, Tyrod Taylor, and Jared Goff have a lower adjusted completion rate than Mac Jones when throwing at least 20 yards downfield. They're playing to his strengths. They don't have great downfield weapons. They're winning football games, but I also can't take another week like last week of everyone acting like the Patriots just had the best draft pick of all time when the guy beat down the Atlanta Falcons and threw for 200 yards and 1 touchdown on a complete coverage bust. I don't think he completed the ball over 20 yards like that entire game. It's just those games, Dwayne. It's that Thursday night game against the Falcons and the Tom Brady Sunday night game.
It's the rookie thing again, man. Everybody needs a rookie quarterback to grab onto, and Mac Jones is kind of all we have right now.
Didn't we all? Wasn't the entire conversation throughout April and May that Mac Jones was the most pro-ready quarterback of the group? I think he's played better than expected.
This is pro-ready. That's what you're seeing, right? He's not making the bad plays.
Yes, exactly. So, love you, Mac, but you're not going to be a fantasy guy. Falcons at the Jaguars.
Not this year.
Not this year. Falcons at the Jaguars. Atlanta sitting as a 1-point favorite. Open Jacksonville as a 1-point favorite. Game total down from 51 to 47. It has been miserable in Atlanta. 3 points in their last 8 quarters. That is 120 minutes for those counting at home. Look, if Kyle Pitts is healthy, and he is, we're starting him. If Cordero Patterson is healthy, we're starting him. Otherwise, whatever. And honestly, the Kyle Pitts thing, man, I always thought the victory laps were weird throughout the middle stretch of the year. Everyone touted Kyle Pitts as a top 5 tight end. Like, if you didn't, I'm not sure what you were smoking while doing your preseason ranks. Maybe hook a brother up. But with Kyle Pitts, like, everyone knew he was going to be great. I think it was just a question of, like, could he be just another tight end 1, or is he going to immediately leap into that Waller-Kelsey territory? So he had the London game, 119 yards and a touchdown. The next week he goes for a $163 against Miami. Other than those two, admittedly very good games, he hasn't scored all year. He hasn't even reached 75 yards all year. Dwayne, his only touchdown came when the Jets decided to cover him with a defensive end. Like, that is the only time Kyle Pitts has caught a touchdown this year. It hasn't been great. He hasn't been able to separate that well from cornerbacks. And I saw your stat about when he played, and people like, you better be following Dwayne on Twitter, but if you don't, like, you are missing out the amount of cool shit he sends out there. But with the Kyle Pitts,
I get the IMs in the middle of the day from Ian. Hey, where'd you pull that?
Well, this is like the 3rd time in the podcast I'm talking about your tweets, so I just wanted to give a brother an extra little bump there, because the point though that you were making was that Kyle Pitts was getting double teamed against the Patriots. I think it was 30% of his routes, and that was a good 10% increase on what we've seen over the year. And like, that's fine. Okay, they definitely made a more concerted effort, but that's still 70% of his routes where he wasn't necessarily facing double coverage, and he just wasn't able to do much. So that's the thing. Like, that's the game where I don't want to just look at that last week and say, oh, Kyle Pitts got taken away by Belichick, because Belichick always takes away the other team's number 1 wide receiver. Like we talked about on the Twitter Spaces before the game, which you guys can always check out on Thursday night with Dwayne, myself, and our lovely buddy Brian Drake. But with this, like, it's one of these descriptors with Belichick always taking away number 1. We bring up the times he does, and we kind of ignore the times he doesn't. Like, where was that when CeeDee Lamb went for a $150 and a couple touchdowns? There are more than enough examples to see over the years. Like, how about when Tom Brady lost his last game in New England, Derrick Henry ran for 180 yards? Where were you on that one, Bill? Like, it's just a common thing that we like to say, but which there actually are NFL defenses that seemingly don't go out of their way to take away the number 1 guy, but it's just a little bit of a tired point, and we can't just write off Kyle Pitts' down week as Bill Belichick syndrome when we, again, have every single week of the year except for 2 when we've seen most of the same thing. So with all that said, Kyle Pitts is getting enough targets to continue to be a rock-solid tight end 1 in fantasy land, but I just think that we were all a little bit early on crowning the guy mid-season. Please get healthy, CPAT, because if not, we got Quadri Allison apparently leading the way now, but I do not trust that for a second. We still have Mike Davis playing a lot. Wayne Gallman could leap back into things. And again, this is all for an offense that has scored 3 points in their last 8 quarters. So it's not all on Matt Ryan. I mean, Falcons receivers this year have only gotten open or wide open, deemed by PFF, on 42% of their routes. That's the 6th lowest mark in the league. I mean, they're 28th in overall pressure rate, 27th in PFF team blocking grade, and 30th in rushing. Like, Matt Ryan had a nice stretch after the first 2 weeks of the year where he looked like his usual self, but not having Ridley, having a banged up CPAT, not really having Kyle Pitts, I think, be as high end as they were maybe hoping in year 1. It's been problematic for everyone. So we're starting Pitts, we're starting Patterson. Other than that, miss me with these Falcons. Dwayne, I think you're probably going to have a pretty similar takeaway here in Jacksonville. We got an RB1. We maybe have a tight end 1 depending on how the lineup and how the week's going. Other than that, whatever.
Yeah, I'm actually okay with just moving on with that. If you are, James Robinson, does get the number 1 running back strength of schedule opportunity this week. Also 27.9 points given up per game to opposing running backs in a PPR format for the Falcons. So you're going to fire Robinson up. Hopefully he'll be full at some point this week with the Hill injury, and we'll see him be able to. He's getting close to being an every down back anyway. Dan Arnold pulls the 2nd best tight end strength of schedule on the week at a 9.7, and I'll just leave it there, Ian.
Sounds good, Dwayne. I was ready to just not do any of that, but I like what you had to say there. So I'm happy.
There was enough noteworthy since the matchups were so good, but yeah, we can move on.
We got to give our guy RB1 son a little credit here and there. Buccaneers at the Colts. Tampa sitting as a 2.5-point favorite. Game total at 51.5. Might just be we see Dak having a couple of down weeks. We see Kyler playing a little banged up. Justin Herbert been a little up and down throughout the year. TB12 MVP 2021 just might be the year. League high 29 passing touchdowns so far. We'll see if he keeps on keeping on. You don't need me to tell you to continue to fire up Brady with all the confidence in the world. In Fantasyland, the question is what to really make of these wide receivers. Dwayne, do you see any update on Evans after the hamstring?
No, I haven't seen it. I'll look it up though right now.
Have not seen an update on that, but yeah, it sounds like Antonio Brown is getting a lot closer to playing. You know, I don't know if there's still an ongoing investigation with the whole COVID card. Until we get new information on that, I'm just going to ignore it. So only looking at AB from the injury perspective, you know, he was sending out Instagram saying he's almost back, and it did seem like him being able to, I believe, get in at least a limited practice last week, or he was on the sideline. Whatever they deemed it, he does seem to be getting closer to returning. So if Evans is going to miss time, like this is what we talk about every week, Dwayne. When all three of these guys are active, Evans, Godwin, and AB, you're starting all of them, but we're forced to rank them really outside the top 12. There's only one ball to go around, and that's especially true when we have Ron Gronkowski back and doing his thing. But when you take away one, then we can get behind Evans, Godwin, AB, whoever is out there. You take away one of those guys, all of a sudden we're looking at a legit wide receiver one. I mean, we see this example everywhere. Cincy, Dallas. Take away one of the big three, usually the other guys are going to eat instead of the wide receiver, four coming into the starting lineup. So it's a lot easier for the backup to, come in from a running back position and get that full workload. Wide receiver, it's much harder to really take that sort of approach. So keep an eye on Mike Evans, because I don't think we're really going to get a new wide receiver coming in to give us value. We already got Brashad Perryman out there doing his thing, almost caught a touchdown in that game last night. It would have been a great catch, but always rooting for Brashad. But the thing is, they got Perryman out there. Scotty Miller just got activated, and Tyler Johnson continues to do his thing. And hell, Jalen Darden gets some run more weeks than not. So Godwin, AB, Evans, but beyond those guys, even with Tyler Johnson there, it's going to be tough to expect, anything more than a desperation flex play from there. Also, with Gronk, who I mentioned, 59% snaps, and I think a lot of that actually could have been higher if they weren't just up by 20 in the fourth quarter. Saw plenty of shots of him just chilling on the sideline there. So he did it 80% in the first 2 weeks of the year, but again, I think that game script was a factor. What wasn't a factor was him getting the ball, 8 targets, 6 catches, 71 yards, and looked fine doing so. He's going to continue to be a weekly tight end one option. Whether you want to put him, where do you have him, Dwayne? Will you put him ahead of Schultz already?
Gronk?
Probably not.
No. I've got Schultz at 6. Gronk was out there 60% of the routes. I mean, we'll probably see him get back towards more like 70, 75%. It's a pretty good matchup this week. The tight end matchup itself is a 62 overall, which is number 1 on the slate. So I've got him at 10 right now. Okay. So I've got him. I might move him above Hawkinson. Like, I know Hawkinson's going to be out there more, but I feel better about the Buck. I'm fine with Rob Gronkowski on 70% of the routes versus TJ Hawkinson at 85%, just in a much better offense.
And hey, if we do end up seeing Mike Evans miss time, like that will be a plus for Gronk as well. Same thing for the other wide receivers. So you guys get it. It's all good having these guys from Tampa Bay, and you should probably be starting them more times than not. Final note is just how juicy the role is with Leonard Fournette. We have talked about that throughout the year here, but just to kind of quantify it, in terms of expected PPR points, the only running backs with more than Leonard Fournette this year, Najee Harris, Jonathan Taylor, DeAndre Swift, and Austin Eckler. That's it. That's the end of the list because of these targets. Dwayne, this one shocked me. I love when I can find a stat that even shocks yourself, but target leaders this year. DeAndre Swift is in first with 65, then Najee Harris with 62, Austin Eckler with 55, and in fourth place among all running backs is Leonard Fournette with 54. I am old enough to remember when we all thought Giovanni Bernard was going to be taking all the targets in Tampa Bay. Lenny freaking Fournette, 4th most targets in the NFL. I did not see that coming, Dwayne, but it is. It's beautiful. He's a weekly RB1 regardless of the matchup. You know who else is a weekly RB1 regardless of the matchup? You know who else might just be a god living among us? Jonathan freaking Taylor. Maybe, Dwayne, he can, I don't know, like let one of his other teammates score a touchdown every time and again. I don't know. Just saying.
Yeah, but it's been nice, man, just to get to see him truly get to open up and, just handle this huge workload over the last at least couple of weeks. It seems like Frank Reich is just kind of like giving in. I think he listened to the podcast. He's like, these guys are reaming my ass. Like, I've got to just let Jonathan Taylor do his thing. The last 2 weeks, 84% and 83% of the snaps, 75 and 71% of the rushing attempts. this last week out there for 71% of the routes. Like, that is nuts. He had been at 48 and 50% the 2 weeks before. Targets per route run, really healthy over the last 2 games, 39% and 20%. So anytime he's out there, they're trying to get it to him. So yeah, like, you're running with Jonathan Taylor. On paper, it looks like the Bucs are a tough matchup, but with Vita Vea not in the lineup, like, it's just not the same, defense, and you can run on them. And look, we knew Buffalo was a tough spot going in last week. Jonathan Taylor didn't care. So when you look at Taylor, 19 points is where Kevin Cole's got him projected for the week, which is number 2. I've got him number 3 right now with McCaffrey 1 and Eckler 2. Eckler's got a great matchup, from a standpoint of the running back strength of schedule. But if you want to put Taylor 1, it's fine. That's the top tier. Those 3 guys together. And then I have Najee Harris and Dalvin Cook in my top tier, but below them this week. Najee's got a nice matchup. So Taylor's in the top 3, going to be in the top 3 every week. He's always a threat to finish number 1. And he just, look, what other running backs really have, the upside to score 4 or 5 touchdowns in a game? There's just not many of them that we have. And he's one of the few because he can score on any touch, whether it's through the air, whether it's on the ground. I could name all the things that he's doing great, but I'll just move forward. I think people know how good Jonathan Taylor is. As far as the passing game goes, they just don't need it that much. I think when they need it, Carson Wentz can be fine, Ian. We just don't know when those games are going to come. This could be that potential spot, though. You get a game against the Bucs, you know that it could be a shootout, right? We know Brady's going to put up points. We got a 51.5 total on the game, which is the number 1 on the slate. So this is a week where Wentz is going to creep up towards, that borderline QB1 for me, just because I think he's going to get a little more work. You could have said the same thing last week around Buffalo, and really, you still didn't need Wentz.
Some of us did, Dwayne. Some of us shouted it, and we looked really stupid when it didn't work out.
The process was right, though, right? You didn't know that Jonathan Taylor was just going to say, I got us. And he just put it all on his shoulders and just took off with it. And the Bills just weren't able to do anything, right? So let's see what Brady – I think Brady, has just been more consistent. To your point earlier, Josh Allen's been very boom or bust this year. Brady hasn't. Brady's had very few stinkers this year. He's really only had one where you're just like, that was just bad. It was against Washington. So with Brady, we know there's going to be more consistency. I think the Colts will be forced to throw the ball a little bit more, which is an upgrade for Carson Wentz. So he'll probably end up around QB 14 or 15 for me this week. Michael Pittman, I have right now as my wide receiver 20 on the week. Much of it thanks to, obviously, this game total and the 24.5 implied points for the Colts. And if you look at the matchup like itself, it's not great. Like it's a little below average wide receiver strength of schedule, and our wide receiver cornerback matchup is a tad below average. But we've seen the Bucs get beat in plenty of ways, so I'm really not that scared of it. 35.2 points per game given up to opposing wide receivers. There's really not another receiver, though, that you can use right now, right, from the Colts. And look, Pittman's biggest risk is just whenever Taylor goes off. Like, it's the same thing for Wentz. They're kind of tied. But if the Colts have to throw and they're really forced into this situation where they need to score a lot of points and it can't all be on the ground, like, Pittman is clearly the guy that you're going to feel the most comfortable with. Pascal, T.Y. Hilton, they could all score a touchdown or something, but they're just not being used enough to really feel that great. Pascal's on the field, but targets per route run are terrible, like 6% the last 2 weeks. T.Y. Hilton, he's not getting as many routes. He's targeted a little more often. So if I had to pick somebody else from the passing game, it probably would be T.Y. Hilton. When you look at Jack Doyle and Mo Alley Cox, they're just rotating too much to feel good about using one of the tight ends.
The process was right. He screamed as his family left him and all of his belongings got evicted. You know what, Dwayne? You know what the most important play is, Dwayne?
I don't know. What's the most important play?
The next one, we got Jets at Texans. Houston, 3-point favorites.
God. Can I switch with you? You take the Texans.
Open Jets -1, game total down to 44.5 after opening at 46. Again, waiver pod, we always go through the big ones of the week. So we talked about Ty Johnson a lot. And really, moral of the story is to be careful. We don't know what the split is going to be with him and Tevin Coleman. If I had to guess, I think Tevin is going to be a bit more involved than a lot of people are hoping. And there also is a chance that LaMichael Pirine is going to be in there as well. This is all for an offense applied to score just 21 points. So the biggest issue facing Ty Johnson, and I'm not the first person to bring this up, but it is the quarterbacks. which one is going to be under center? It is now going to be Zach Wilson because his knee magically got better as Mike White and Joe Flacco got put on the COVID list. So Flacco was a close contact. He did come out and say he's unvaccinated, so I believe that's 10 days. I'm not confirmed on that, but it seems like that'd be the case. And obviously Mike White will not be there because Zach Wilson is starting this week. So it's just something to keep in mind with the check down rate because Mike White, 10.9%. That is the single highest mark in the league among 48 qualified quarterbacks. We got Zach Wilson all the way down there at 5.4%. That's 32nd. Flacco even lower at 4.3%. So with Ty Johnson, like Dwayne, he's an RB3 for sure. Could you even squeeze him in the top 24 though?
Yeah, I've got Ty Johnson at running back 27 right now.
Okay.
And it's mainly because we feel really good about the passing down role. I think he's going to handle somewhere between 30 and 40% of the rushing attempts, and he'll handle most of the passing down work. And it's a team that trails all the time. So I'm going to lean to Ty Johnson. I think Tevin Coleman probably gets a little over half of the carries. And to your point, like this is just me giving my best guesstimate based on what we've seen with utilization so far this season.
No, I think RB27 is perfect. Just don't get carried away thinking we have, stumbled upon this like waiver wire darling. Perfectly fine. RB3. Feel good about that. Only other real note here is Elijah Moore, wide receiver, one season, everyone. 80% snap rate last week. That was his highest since week 1. Actually drew his first start since week 3. Fancy that, taking the guy you drafted with the 34th overall pick and, starting him. So about damn time. Last 5 weeks, wide receiver 36, wide receiver 26, wide receiver 1, wide receiver 27, and wide receiver 3. We have the snaps now to feel good about it. Yeah, we got Zach Wilson back under center. Maybe we're feeling a little better with Joe Flacco being out there. Words I was hoping I wouldn't have to say about Zach Wilson and the Jets this year, but here we are in week 12. I think he's a borderline wide receiver 2. At a minimum, he's upside wide receiver 3, and you can feel actually good about starting him. So we're going to see some lows. I don't think he's going to be ripping off, this sort of high-end performance every single week. But hey, he's pretty damn good. He's shown the ability to win after the catch. He's shown the ability to win downfield. And with Zach Wilson down there, you could argue if he is going to start playing out to his potential more, the ceiling is higher because let's face it, as great as Mike White and Joe Flacco, and as great, I should probably say like mediocre, as they've looked for certain stretches this year, we all know Zach Wilson and with that howitzer he's got for a right arm gives this offense the highest ceiling. So Elijah Moore, feeling much better about him than we have in weeks. And Corey Davis continues to be out there as well. I would go Elijah over Corey for sure. It seems like they are trending towards more being the more full-time number 1, as he should be. But Corey Davis, if you're in a pinch, I think is a perfectly fine wide receiver 4 as well. With Eli getting more into this, I think the days of really trusting Crowder as anything more than this like low ceiling wide receiver 4 himself are over. So feeling good about Elijah Moore. Don't really be too optimistic about Ty Johnson. And send it over to you, Dwayne, where we have a Houston Texans running back room. We got to talk about him, man. I thought we were done with it yesterday, and then they went ahead and they had to actually get rid of Phillip Lindsay. So Rex Burkhead, David Johnson, for now, we're still not touching him, though. Come on.
Yeah. Now, before I go there, though, just the last 3 games, the Jets have 1,001 passing yards and 7 touchdowns through the air off of the trio of Joe Flacco, Mike White, and Josh Johnson. Zach Taylor has big shoes to fill.
I didn't tweet this out, so I'll just say it to thousands of people on a podcast anyway. There's a non-zero chance that Josh Johnson is the best quarterback for the New York Jets. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, he came up with that QB6 finish right in week 9. So it's hey Zach, you just all we care, Zach, is you just keep Elijah Moore going, and the masses will love you. They will flock to you. So keep it going, Zach. As far as the Texans, I still don't want to talk about this, but I will since you're making me. But I think it'll pretty much just be a split between Johnson and Burkhead. I don't know for sure, how it will work, who will be the lead. Most likely it will be Johnson, in the lead. But I've got them both in my tier 6, so I still have not moved them up drastically to this point, Ian. So tier 6 to give folks, an idea. It's going to put them, because I haven't numbered it. So I've got David Johnson right now at RB40. I mean, I might bump him up like closer to 36, Ian. And then I've got Burkhead right now at 46. So I just, look, I still want to see another week. I don't know what's going to happen. Most likely it will just be a rotation between the two, but they'll probably sign some dude off the street. Like this is going to be the third back. I haven't had time to research like who could potentially be the third back now that Philip Lindsay is gone, or are they just going to roll with these two? We'll have to wait and see. Not that excited about utilizing them. I will say though, Tyrod Taylor this week is in an okay spot.
Oh no! You know who it is? Wait. Oh, he's not ready. They have Royce Freeman, but there's a report saying he's not ready for game action. Oh, that would have been too funny.
So it'll be back to a 3-way as soon as he's ready, right? It's going to be a 3-way committee.
Okay. That was for last week, so it might be this week.
So
more reason than ever. Hell no.
Yeah, so Royce Freeman, is probably the player we like the most out of those three. But yeah, just don't want to mess with it. So
damn.
Go ahead.
So Freeman seemingly was the reason why, because he was still on the Broncos last year. So Lindsay.
Yeah, like this.
Does he keep taking Lindsay's job? He got him kicked off in Denver and Houston. That's not cool, Royce.
Yeah, man. And I like Philip Lindsay better than Royce.
What the hell? Am I off on that? Because Lindsay, no, Lindsay was in Denver last. Okay,
we've reached our time limit on the Texans. Ian, I'm about to hit this buzzer. I have a shocker attached to Ian. If he talks too long about the Texans or Browns, I shock him. So if you guys see him jump, we've got that set up. Real quick, Tyrod Taylor, quarterback strength of schedule, 9.9 out of 10 this week against the Jets. So he could come through for you if you're just absolutely, who knows, maybe you're dealing with a situation where you weren't prepared and you're going to be without Patrick Mahomes. You've likely already been ready for Kyler Murray being out since he's already been out. But those are the two teams we've got on bye. So Tyrod, sneaks inside my top 20 for the week. And Brandon Cooks. You guys don't need me to say anything about Brandon Cooks. I'll just say Brandon Cooks and then let's move on.
We all know Brandon Cooks. Next game, we got the Chargers at the Broncos. Chargers sitting as a 3-point favorite. Opened with Denver at 2.5 for whatever reason. Game totals up to 47 from 45.5. So, man, Dwain, we do our podcast on Sunday night. I don't put the actual game on because I think that would just be too distracting as I'm trying to talk. But I usually have the ESPN play-by-play up, and I'll just kind of see what's happening as you're talking about whatever. And I saw the start to that Chargers game, and they threw the ball 3 times on the first drive to Mike Williams. He caught all 3 of them, 41 yards. He drew a DPI in the end zone, and I was like, let's go. We're back. He's getting the featured role. Only 3 targets the rest of the game. And guess what? He turned into wide receiver 10 performance because he got a blown coverage touchdown there at the end. But it just still wasn't what we wanted to see from this offense. Herbert is a great quarterback, so he can make great plays and still put up good performances in a system that's not the best suited for his talents. But come on, this is still a problem here. He has attempted just 2 passes of at least 20 yards over the past 3 weeks. This guy is one of the strongest arms in the league. Quit making him play in the same offense that you used to really get the most out of 40-year-old noodle arm Drew Brees. So he averaged 4 of these throws per game in weeks 1 through 6. I don't think it's a coincidence that the Chargers offense looked far better, far more lethal when you had Herbert going down the field more often because he's incredible at it. He's 3rd among 44 qualified quarterbacks in PFF passing grade when throwing deep. 1st in QB rating, 6th in yards per attempt, 5th in adjusted completion rate. The guy is a baller, but he doesn't do it. You look, there's only 4 quarterbacks this year that have thrown a pass at least 20 yards on fewer than 8% of their attempts. Jimmy G, Daniel Jones, Matt Ryan, and Justin freaking Herbert. He does not belong in that group, and unfortunately he does. So, hey, Herbert, he's got the rushing upside. We saw that. He can sure run the ball. Not something we'll be getting every single game, but he has the ability to provide us some of that Konami code upside. It's just a matter of can we get him more consistently throwing downfield? Because to me, Dwayne, it feels almost like when the Chiefs just eviscerated the Raiders on Sunday Night Football, where it was that's awesome. I'm happy you guys did that.
Yeah, I feel like he's being coached into this, Ian. Because it's more like what we saw with Breeze. You don't want to throw the contested throw. That's hurting Mike Williams. Mike Williams is not great at beating press coverage over and over and over if that's what you're going to ask him to do and make this huge separation. Mike Williams is more the dude that says, hey, dude, I'm covered, but I'm open. I'm still open, right? And there's some guys that you like that in the league. Some guys you don't want to give those opportunities to in the league because contested throws we know are not worth as much as non-contested. But when you have a beast like Mike Williams and that's his game, they just need to let it rip and get it to him more. And I think that's part of the issue is because he's not getting separation against single man coverage. It's like Herbert. It's almost kind of like what we've seen historically with Derek Carr, where he just doesn't. And so you gave the perfect example, right, against the Chiefs. You get this man coverage look, and he just doesn't want to put it out there because he doesn't want like a 50-50 ball. Like Carr wants to see the true separation. And so we saw that also historically with Drew Brees. He's not a contested catch thrower. He would throw the back shoulder fade, but he wasn't one to throw just a lot of contested balls. So I do wonder if that's Joe Lombardi getting into his ear, and that's what's hurting us with Mike Williams, because he doesn't win the same way that Keenan Allen wins.
So, yes, congrats, Justin. Congrats to Chargers. It was a great win, but this was a completely banged-up Pittsburgh Steelers defense that hasn't been as good as a lot of people are used to in the first place. I'm a little worried about them going on the road into Denver, facing, Dwayne's dog agrees with me, facing the always well-coached Vic Fangio scheme defense. So, I'm not giving these guys an upgrade based on what happened last week is my big point here. But, hey, that's great news for Keenan Allen, because since the bye, he has been awesome. Wide receiver 14, wide receiver 3, wide receiver 9, and then wide receiver 14 again. So continue to get Keenan into lineups of all shapes and sizes. And Mike Williams, man, he's really settling in as, if you wanted to put him outside top 24 and just say boom or bust wide receiver 3, I think that's probably what we're looking at this point. Better matchups down the road. I think he could have better games, but we need the targets, and they have now shown us for over a month straight that they're not going to feed him the high quantity of targets. I think they should. Their offense sure looks better, when they do feed him targets, but I'm not running the Chargers. We need to see what they're going to do, and it's not looking great from a volume perspective for Mike. And finally, some Austin Eckler love on God mode. 4 touchdowns on Monday night. This year, only the guy with 5 touchdowns, Jonathan Taylor, has more PPR points above expectation than Eckler, right ahead of fellow beast Nick Chubb and future Hall of Famer Cordero Patterson. Only Jonathan Taylor and Najee Harris have more games as a true top 12 fantasy back than Eckler through 11 weeks. You know who told us all this was going to happen, Dwayne? Nathan Yonke. He told freaking everyone all year. PFF_ Nathan Yonke on Twitter, and he is once again up in the top of that Fantasy Pros rankings competition. Kings stay kings, the Austin Eckler and Nathan Yonke story. Now, Dwayne, with Denver, coming off the bye, Teddy Bridgewater's still under center. We're hoping it's time to free Javonte Williams, but we don't know. I will say, and I'm not sure if you were planning on saying this, so sorry to potentially steal your thunder.
Just steal it.
There we go. I got a fun note from friend of the pod, Johnny Daigle, over there with the artist formerly known as Roto World. And if you saw before the Broncos bye, Melvin Gordon did have a costly fumble in that game. And actually, after that fumble, we did see Javonte Williams start to take a little more control of the backfield. He did outsnap Melvin Gordon 12-3 following that costly 4th-and-1 fumble. We got the post-bye. The schedule here is borderline erotic moving forward. Like, Dwayne, if it's going to happen, it's going to be now. Now, we can't guarantee it's going to happen, but you could imagine.
Yeah. If you read the utilization report, you saw, we had a note on that last week, just what, you were talking about with Daigle. We did see Javonte Williams take over the role after the fumble by Gordon. So we'll just have to wait and see. The coaches have had enough time to reflect, calm down, had a bye weekend. So, I hope it's Williams. Gordon's actually played well too, right? I'm not just trying to, wish, Melvin Gordon off into a sunset like too early, but
he's been good. Javonte's been great.
Exactly. Like the missed tackles force rate, top in the league, his explosive run rates, one of the top 5 in the league, yards after contacts in the top 3 in the league. He's up there with like Nick Chubb and Jonathan Taylor and these other guys in basically every metric. He does get stuffed more than those others. He likes to dance a little bit too much behind the line. And I know I've read some quotes in the press, about that. So I don't know if that's something that continues why they're keeping them together, 50-50, but we'll see. Look, sometimes, Barry Sanders got tackled behind the line of scrimmage a few times, but that was okay, right? Sometimes you just want to see the guy play. So with those two guys, I've got them ranked this week. Hang on, let me pop back over to my rankings. I was getting ready to talk about the receivers. I have got Melvin Gordon at 23, and I've got Javonte Williams at 25. So I got them right there together. 26.8 points allowed per game to fantasy running backs from the Chargers defense. They like to keep everything in front of them. So they're going to invite, the Broncos to run the ball. In fact, if you look at, I've got a tool and I put this out every week on Twitter. I don't have it up in front of me, but just looking at which teams actually invite and allow the most rushing attempts per game, the Chargers are at the top of that list. So this is a game where we could see 15 carries each for these backs, even if they are splitting the workload. If it's a game where Williams does take over, we have this 20 touch potential, which would be really cool to see. So I've got them both, like I said, in that tier 4 right there, fringe low end RB2. But either one of them could have some nice upside this week, but based on the matchup. As far as the passing game goes, Teddy Bridgewater, we just talked about, Justin Herbert not wanting to throw the contested balls that often, coming from that Drew Brees tree, I guess, with Lombardi. Kind of got the same thing going on, over here in Denver. You got all these receivers, and it's just like Teddy Bridgewater needs to see someone absolutely open. And it really just, honestly, at this point, you see Cortland Sutton, good news for him. He and Tim Patrick have both gotten paid and re-upped in the last couple of weeks. And so, look, like the stage is set. Like Teddy Bridgewater is not going to be this quarterback next year. If Elway's going to pay those guys, like he's got his eyes on this offseason, which could be a huge offseason when you look at all the potential names at quarterback that could be available. It could be something with Russ Wilson. It could be something with Aaron Rodgers. Now, they've tied a lot of money up with these guys. I don't know what the cap situation is. But, man, just give us one of these really good quarterbacks with these guys. Now what are they going to do with Noah Fant? I don't know. But right now, it's the Jerry Jeudy show, man, because we've got Teddy Bridgewater under center. He wants to, he likes to keep things in front of him. He doesn't go downfield that often. And Jeudy gets to work from the slot, and he's also destroying man coverage. It's still a small sample, only 40 routes against single man. His counterparts, Tim Patrick's had 104 such routes. Cortland Sutton's had 133, but we had Jeudy injured. But, man, in the 40 that he's played, 65% of the time, he's creating a step or more of separation against man coverage. Like, these slot cornerbacks cannot cover Jerry Jeudy, which we knew he was a separator coming out of college. And now he's getting the benefit of working inside, against these slot cornerbacks. He's getting the option. Is he going outside? Is he going inside? And he gets heavily targeted in those scenarios. When he gets single man, he's the most targeted on a targets per route run for the Broncos at 25%. You got Cortland Sutton at 21% and Tim Patrick at 22%. So this is a good spot for Jerry Jeudy. I'm excited about what he could do this week. I've got him actually at wide receiver 26, one spot ahead of Elijah Moore, who we talked about just a couple of seconds ago, who is at wide receiver 27. So he's just outside that wide receiver 2 range, but this could be a big week for him. Look, I love Sutton. I love Patrick, but there's just too many mouths to feed. And the way Sutton wins is very similar to what we talked about with Mike Williams. He's not like this huge separator. He does beat man coverage, and he's actually better at it than Mike Williams. He does create more separation than Mike Williams, but he's still kind of a get it up to me, let me do my thing kind of player. And we're just not seeing Teddy Bridgewater with the return of someone like Jeudy giving him that easier option, being willing to do that. So I have actually got right now Cortland Sutton. He is down at my wide receiver 35. So I'm keeping him inside the 36 just because he's got talent, but fully knowing it's a boom bust wide receiver 3. He could give you a 50 spot, in a heartbeat. If you look at him over the last 3 weeks since we've had Jeudy return, man, it has been brutal, Ian. Wide receiver 65, 88, and 59. It's just hard. Even though he's a talented player, the quarterback is just destroying his value right now. So that's tough. Noah Fant, when we have Albert O out there, it's just tough for him just because he doesn't see enough routes. But we know the talent is there, and you also, with Fant. So I still keep him in the top 12, but he's also more of a boom-bust play. Anytime we have Albert O on the field, it's been a struggle for Fant this season. So if you want to push him down a little lower in your personal ranks this week, folks, I don't blame you. I'm fine with him, really. If you want to think of him as more a high-end tight end 2 than a low-end tight end 1, you will get no arguments from me.
I mean, at the end of the day, Teddy hasn't thrown for 250 yards in a game since week 6. There's just not enough production, unfortunately. Can't wait till 2022 though.
It's a loaded offense, man. It is a loaded offense.
It's Tim Patrick with that deal should be starting in 3 wide receiver sets, and that now makes KJ Hamler maybe the best number 4 wide receiver in the NFL. They have weapons everywhere. That's going to be a lot of fun. Vikings at the 49ers. San Fran down to a 3-point favorite after opening at 6.5. Game total is up to 48.5 from 46.5. So Kirk Cousins, if he gets a clean pocket, he is probably going to win the game. Number 1, tied for first, okay, but either way. In PFF passing grade among 34 qualified quarterbacks, 10th in big-time throw rate, 9th in yards per attempt, 2nd in adjusted completion rate. And now, yeah, Nick Bosa is pretty freaking great, but as a whole, San Francisco is outside the top 20 defenses in pressure, both quick and regular. So Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, per usual, get them in those starting lineups. And the Jefferson usage in particular has just been fantastic. You know, we had kind of the mini squeaky wheel thing going on. He had the wide receiver 76 dud. Then he had the wide receiver 14 game. He caught a long touchdown, but still wasn't getting the targets. Since then, wide receiver 7 and wide receiver 1. And they're going out of their way to do this. You know, fancy that. Doing creative things to get your best players the ball. I saw a great note from Hayden Winks over there, Underdog Fantasy, fantastic Twitter follow as well, just showing the touchdown that Jefferson had where he was literally lined up in the backfield. Nothing gets me more excited than seeing wide receivers with that running back usage. More Minnesota. Keep on keeping on. 43% air yard share. 5th among all wide receivers. Like Thielen's doing his thing, but we always knew Jefferson was going to emerge as the true number 1. But hey, Kirk condenses enough. There's enough pass game volume. Start both these guys with confidence. And I kind of look at the 49ers similar to the Packers, who we just saw the Vikings get by last week, where they're well coached on defense. They're not bad per se, but I think when you really face something sharp like Cousins, Jefferson, Thielen, you know, there's only a handful of defenses that can really give them consistent problems when they're clicking. So I am not worried about this matchup. And then last thing, you know, Dalvin Cook, he's getting the volume. He just hasn't been the same guy this year, really. Career low marks in yards per carry, PFF rushing grade, and the yards after contact per carry is his worst since his rookie year. So it hasn't been bad when he's out there. Like, you look at his finishes, and he's being an RB1 more weeks than not. He's just not returning exactly what you were hoping for when he probably used the 2nd overall pick to acquire services. So keep going back to the well. Alexander Mattison continues to be arguably, you know, if not the best handcuff in fantasy football. Anyone's idea of top 3. Tyler Conklin, touchdown-dependent tight end 2, as the kids might say. Now, Dwayne, with the 49ers, Brandon Ayuk, man, we got him back. He's back, and I think this week he might actually catch the Patrick Peterson shadow. For some reason, the Vikings did not use Peterson to shadow until he came back. First game off IR, and they said, hey, go track Devontae Adams, see how that goes. Didn't go well. This could be an upgrade, man, if we get that situation. But either way, we got Debo as a running back, so Ayuk is usable again.
Yeah, I was going to say Debo RB1 season in full effect. Yeah, man, Ayuk, looking at his routes the last 3 weeks, 94%, 100%, 96%. And it's just, I'm so thankful, man, just because like what he did as a rookie and some of the thresholds he hit as far as yards per route run, his targets per route run, all these things that we really look at, even like really from a dynasty perspective, these thresholds we want these receivers to hit. He hit a ton of them last year. So he was really expected. And obviously we were drafting him, right? And in the 5th round, you know, of sharper drafts, like Ayuk wasn't slipping around 6 or 7 like he might in some home leagues. He was going in the 4th and 5th round for a good reason. And so it's good to see, you know, this payoff, that it's not another Dante Pettis situation. So he's out there plenty. Targets per route run this last week, Ian, 29%, 35% of the targets, 38% of the air yards, 40% of the 3rd and 4th down targets, number 1 on the team. And of course, it is the 49ers, so you get plenty of play action looks, 29% last week. Typically, more of those go to Debo, who's at 32% play action targets on the season. But last week, it was really Ayuk getting to play more of the Debo role, operating at an ADOT of 8, with Samuel operating more at running back. So I think once we get JaMychal Hasty back, you'll see Debo playing more out wide, and you'll see Hasty taking some of those looks that Debo has seen. I think they'll still get Debo involved underneath. And when that happens, it'll be interesting to see, like, how do they divide the ball up? Because we still haven't talked about George Kittle. But the fact remains, when you look at Brandon Ayuk in the utilization report this week, I did give him an upgrade. He moved to high-end wide receiver 3, just because we know he's a really talented guy. And we know there's some boom bust to it because of the way the 49ers run the offense. Look, if you look at the last 3 weeks, Jimmy Garoppolo has played, well, actually, if you look at the last 4 weeks, like Garoppolo has really improved, like as far as his PFF passing grades have gone. Early in the season, he was just one of the worst graded quarterbacks in the league. Each of the last 4 weeks, he's been over a 70. He's had some near 80 scores in his PFF passing grade. But again, they can be efficient. If you look at the last 2 games, 182 yards passing and 2 touchdowns, 176 yards passing. and 2 touchdowns. But we do have a game where it's a situation that we could get more of a shootout in with that 48 total, 25.5 implied points on the game, which is going to be in the top 6 for the week for the Niners. So maybe it is one of those games where we get something that's more like really what we saw 3 weeks ago from Jimmy Garoppolo, where he was up over 300 yards passing, and he also had 2 passing. It was 326 yards and 2 passing touchdowns in week 9. So we could have that kind of game coming from Garoppolo. We know he's got the weapons, and it could be forced in that sort of game script. So as far as Deebo Samuel goes, I have him ranked as the wide receiver 4 on the week. I've got Cooper Kupp, Devontae Adams ahead of him, and I've got Justin Jefferson ahead of him. But then I had Deebo 4th, and then I have I've got Brandon Ayuk right now at wide receiver 28. And so, I mean, he may end up going up a little bit higher than that, but I think that's about right. I want him in that wide receiver, the top side of that wide receiver 3 tier. When you look at the matchup, it's a plus 41.5 points given up per game by the Minnesota secondary to opposing wide receivers. So it's an absolute smash spot for Deebo and Ayuk. You got to have them in all. You got to have both those guys in all your lineups unless you're playing in a 3-person league. George Kittle, tougher matchup. Only 8.6 points given up per game by Minnesota to opposing tight ends. That is the second toughest on the season. Also, our tight end strength of schedule metric, a 0 out of 10. 0 being very bad. And so it's still George Kittle. They're still going to use play action. He's still a mismatch. It doesn't really matter with Kittle who he plays, so you're not going to get overly crazy with downgrading him too much. But it just pushes him down to tight end 4 for me for the week. But still, he's in my tier. He's still in my top tier. He's just in the bottom of tier 1 for the week, which we have no Kelsey this week. So that tier is a little smaller than what it usually is, Ian. And then Elijah Mitchell, we'll have to keep an eye on the finger. But right now I'm looking at this as if he is going to play. I've got him at running back 18. The offensive line run blocking advantage for the 49ers versus Minnesota is a 95, which is out of 100. It's number 1 on the week. So a great matchup as well for Mitchell. So if he's fully healthy, you can see 15 to 20 touches and a really nice matchup. Basically, it's a great week to fire up all the 49ers.
Great week to be great and fire up all the 49ers as always. Rams at the Packers. Green Bay sitting at 3-point favorites. Game total at 47.5. Let's get that deep ball back, Stafford. Need your fastball. It has not been there in his last 2 games. Started off the year 18 for 33, throwing at least 20 yards downfield. He is 0 for his last 7. He had 13 big-time throws and 1 turnover-worthy play in the first 2 months of the year when throwing deep. Last 2 games, 1 big-time throw, 4 turnover-worthy plays. So are we going to blame all of this on Odell Beckham's 15 snaps from his debut? Go ahead. It seems like a lot of people are already, so you can just blend in with the crowd there. But, yeah, come on, people. Was it pretty hilarious to see, in the first drive together, Stafford force an interception deep to OBJ? Yes, I'm sure Baker, was laughing and then probably in pain because that dude's every part of his body is seemingly hurt at the second. But come on, he played 15 snaps and he caught the other 2 balls and he looked pretty good doing so. So Sean McVay, smart guy. I think the Rams, when I hear that Jalen Ramsey, Robert Woods, and Cooper Kupp were all begging Beckham to come there, I kind of trust their opinions over just kind of the Twitter circus that is trying to go after this guy. So no, I'm not saying Beckham is going to be this top 10 wide receiver or anything. That's Cooper Kupp's job, and he continues to do it very well. But I do think that if you're just blindly fading Beckham because of this narrative that's out there, you could be missing out on the Rams' number 2 pass game option here moving forward. Van Jefferson will be there too, but I think we'll learn a lot more about this pecking order after this week, fully anticipating OBJ having more of a full-time role coming out of that bye. We'll see what happens. So for this week, a little bit more, I would say, as a low-end wide receiver 3. You don't need to go out of your way to get him in the lineup by any stretch of the imagination. We have seen this Packers defense really play great all year long. I know the Vikings, did their thing last week. Justin Jefferson is a pretty hard guy to guard, so not going to hold that one against them too much. But yeah, Kupp, obviously starting him in fantasy leagues of all shapes and sizes, and Beckham and Van Jefferson both in that low-end wide receiver 3, maybe more like wide receiver 4 range, until we see Stafford in this offense get a little bit more on track. I mean, truly, man, it has been rough. They scored at least 26 points in all but one game from weeks 1 through 8. They totaled 26 points in their last 2 games against the Titans and 49ers. So maybe they won't get back quite those same heights. I'd like to think they'll improve a little bit upon the group that we've seen most recently. Final point, our guy, Darrell Henderson, you're starting him week in, week out. His numbers from before the bye weren't great in that game, but that was because he got briefly checked for the concussion before coming back out. He is good to go, and that did mark the first time all year that he didn't have at least 15 combined carries and targets in a game. So we have seen this Packers defense generally play much better against the pass and the run throughout the year, but I do think that Henderson could be, that kind of ace of spades up their sleeve if they really do want to go ahead and exploit maybe what this Packers defense is still a little bit mediocre with, at least compared to their pass coverage. So Henderson, start him. Kupp, start him. Everyone else, I'd like to see a little more before we get him in there. And I think that goes for Tyler Higbee as well. He did find the end zone in that last game before the bye. But yeah, Dwayne, we keep talking about all these great tight end options now. I think Higbee has settled in as a touchdown-dependent tight end too, despite all that great utilization that we see with him on a game-to-game basis. So I talked about some matchups here and there throughout this episode, but Dwayne, the biggest one of the week by far is going to be Jalen Ramsey on Davante Adams. Now, he has not consistently shadowed one receiver at all really over the past 2 years. The only 3 receivers where they have actually taken Ramsey out of that like star position that he usually plays in the slot have been DK Metcalf, Mike Evans, and in the NFC divisional round last year, Davante Adams. But Dwayne, as we saw in that divisional round, when you have someone with the target share and with the talent of Davante Adams, even someone like Jalen Ramsey isn't going to get us off him in fantasy land.
Yeah, and they do a lot of things with Adams to move him around and protect him from those sort of things and different looks that they do with their different formations. There's a lot of ways that they can use, that they can create space, essentially, for Adams. So, yeah, you don't want to see Ramsey trailing him all game long. But to your point, to your saying, Ian, kings stay kings. Like Adams, you're still not fading him. I've still got him in my top 3 for the week, and I'm not moving him out. Plus, to your point, we don't know that Ramsey will even shadow him or not. Now, it is a tough matchup, like overall for this passing game. If you look at, the Rams, they are also another team that they just keep everything in front of them. There's a lot of cover 4, a lot of cover 6, a lot of 2 high safety looks. They're not really one to give you that single high, or a lot of blitz looks, and if they do, there's still a lot of coverage behind it. So Aaron Rodgers is going to have to stay patient in this game. And I think it's a potential problem if Ramsey does partially shut down Davante Adams, because really what does Marquise Valdes-Scantling do well? He's really there to stretch the field and hopefully give you a big play. Well, you're not going to get many shots down the field against this Rams defense. So it's probably more of a Randall Cobb day, to be honest, if you're going to have one of these other receivers step in and do something. We'll have to keep an eye on Allen Lazard because he and Cobb have rotated some. Whenever we've had Valdes-Scantling healthy in the past. But last week we had Lazard miss the game due to a shoulder. But if we have Lazard out, I think Cobb is kind of a sneaky play, as a boom bust kind of wide receiver 4 option, because they don't have a tight end to go to. You could also see a lot of checkdowns to A.J. Dillon with the way that the Rams play, their defense. So with Rodgers, I still got him in my top 10 because I think this is a potential shootout matchup with 2 teams that are trying to position for playoffs. And I think there's a lot on the line, despite the fact that the matchup is tougher for Rodgers. As far as the running back situation goes, you got A.J. Dillon. We talked about him a little bit on the Monday morning show, talking about, doing the recap of all the games from last week. But yeah, he's just in an every down role. So he handled 75% of the snaps, 61% of the rushing attempts, and 51% of the routes, which was really nice. Had all the short down and distance, and even had all the 2-minute offense. So that was kind of cool to see Dillon do that. Very different back than Aaron Jones. He's not running angle routes, not going to run bullet routes, not going to run out and ups. That's not his game. But you can get him involved through the screen game. You can run the swing passes. There's some different things that he can do. And when you're running coverage off with guys like Valdes-Scantling, especially when you're playing defense like the Rams do, there's probably going to be some opportunities underneath for A.J. Dillon to catch something. And, it's always not, it's got to be a nightmare for a cornerback to look and just see A.J. Dillon Like always, like anytime you see that swing pass out to a back like Dillon or Derrick Henry or Chubb, and you're like, oh shit, like it's just me. It's me in this. I got to do enough for the safety to get over here. Like I just have to do enough for this, for the crazy linebacker like Ian Hartitz, like to get over here and like clean this thing up. I just got to delay. I got to delay progress. That's all I'm here to do. Personally, Ian, like I'll do a confession. Like when I had the tackle backs, now I never faced an AJ Dillon, but I specifically remember in high school playing this team, Everman. They're close to us, and they had this. I can't remember his name. I can usually remember the names of these backs, but they had this big back, and I was coming up to him, and I had to tackle him like 2 or 3 times, in this scrimmage. And I didn't look at him. I just totally threw my back and my shoulder pads at his knees. I got him the first 2 times, and he hurdled me on the 3rd one, and so it was problematic.
No, you got hurdled. Head up, Dwain. Head up.
Yeah. They weren't teaching head up back then. There was just like McFarland, get him on the ground, and there was not a lot of instruction, on how to do it. But there was a lot of screaming, so I did what I did. I just tried to figure out the best way to do it possible. So who else? I already talked about Cobb, and there's not any tight end. So yeah, that's it. Dillon, I've got at running back 7 on the week.
I learned how to tackle thanks to Coach Mack, my lovely 5th grade coach back in the day, and he made it real simple. He said, look, guys, you're small. You're about to face some guys that are a lot bigger than you. And if you try to tackle them up here, you're going to get run the hell over. So tackle them down low, because if you can't move your legs, then you can't run forward. And then he said, once you get their legs, start twisting, because they're going to have to go to the ground, because if they don't, you're about to tear everything in their legs. So that's what I learned with that. And you go low, Dwain. You go low, and you keep your head up so you don't end up on the hurdle highlight foam. But yeah, that's the thing, man. Nowadays, kids are jumping over everyone. So I would not want to be playing these days. I'm happy to be sitting behind the microphone. Everything about Dillon, though, is true. Okay, he's not Eckler. He's not McCaffrey. It doesn't matter. The yards count the same. He's actually 4th in yards per out run among 51 running backs with at least 15 targets. He's also one of only 3 backs with James Robinson and Tony Pollard averaging over 2 yards after contact on over 75% of his carries this year. He has truly done everything you could hope for with his opportunities. Final 2 games, everyone. Thanks for sticking with us. We got Sunday Night Football. Browns at the Ravens. Baltimore sitting as 3.5-point favorites. Game total at 46. Nobody, not a single team in the NFL, not a single team in the universe that plays in the NFL's rules has a lower catchable pass rate when their wide receivers are considered open or wide open than the Browns and Baker Mayfield. So Jarvis Landry hasn't reached 75 yards or scored a touchdown as a receiver this season. He has found the end zone twice as a rusher. Does that mean Jarvis just sucks and is the one holding back this Browns offense? I don't think so. I'm not going to go leap from that conclusion. I know others maybe would based on other past examples, but either way, big thing you need to know, Cleveland has scored 17 or fewer points in 6 of their last 8 games. We cannot touch this passing game. It's weird, Dwain, because on the one hand, I feel bad about criticizing Baker a lot because clearly the guy's playing through a ton of injuries, but he's going out there and he is playing. So I don't know. It's one of those things where it's so tough, man, with these guys because everyone's playing through the pain. I see in an MMA fight. I love the UFC. It's my favorite sport other than the NFL to watch. And a guy gets hurt or a guy loses and he's like, yeah, I came in this fight with an injury. It's like, well, that sucks. I could never do any of these things. But when you're going out there and you're playing and you're signing the dot and you're going out there and competing, I think we just got to take it at face value. So at least for fantasy purposes, we cannot touch this passing game. And I will just finish with that. The good news is these running backs are unbelievable. I put a graph out there today. Handy old Excel, didn't even need to break out the R for it, but basically I had on one axis yards after contact per carry, and the other one missed tackles forced per carry, just trying to get some independent running back usage or efficiency stuff that's not as related to their offensive line or passing game. And in the top right corner, you get this group of running backs that are just awesome at both. James Robinson, Tony Pollard, Jonathan Taylor, Javonte Williams, and then we got Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, and Dearness Johnson as 3 of your 7 best running backs, basically, in these metrics. Absolutely wild to see those guys do that. Dwain, what was the specific word and report on Kareem Hunt? I heard you say earlier that he should be back?
Yeah, they're positive. They're hopeful that he's going to play this week. So okay. I'm grading the backfield as if he is playing.
Okay, and in that case, man, because this is not the same Browns offense that we even had earlier in the year when Kareem Hunt was out there, because I mentioned this before, 17 points or fewer in 6 of 8 games. That is brutal. So Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, they're both great running backs, but what were they doing in the first half of the year? They were really making more out of what we would have expected based on really unsustainable touchdown totals and them just being ballers. So I still think you're going to start them in lineups of all shapes and sizes. Do you have them ranked inside your top 12 backs, though, Dwayne?
I've got Chubb at 12 right now, and then I've got Kareem Hunt at 15. Here's the direct quote, is hopeful. But Stefanski did say that he would be designated to return from IR this week. So we'll still have to keep an eye, on the calf strain, see if he gets in a full practice or not, by the week's end. It could be a situation where we're moving Chubb up a little bit more if Hunt's not going to play. We did see Dearness Johnson take over some of Kareem Hunt's, work with Hunt being out, but it wasn't the same kind of utilization. It's still, it's much better for Chubb, whenever Hunt's not in there, even though Dearness Johnson has been good.
You would like to think, based on how well Dearness has played, that if Kareem Hunt's in there, he's back, he's getting his role. I don't think they would bring him in like a limited capacity or emergency only. Right. They do have a week 13 bye, so maybe it would make sense to give Hunt this week off. He gets another bye week and then comes back strong.
I think their struggle is they are in a need to win every game right now mode. And Kareem Hunt's one of their best, 3 to 4 players, on the offense. It's outside of the offensive line. As far as playmakers, really, it's Hunt and Chubb are their 2 best playmakers.
We're starting Nick Chubb in fantasy lineups of all shapes and sizes, and Kareem Hunt should be in the majority as well. Just need to wait and see and get that validation. Dearness Johnson, if Kareem Hunt is out again, he's just more of a flex play. We know what he can do if both these guys are down. There's just really not enough meat on the bone in this version of the Browns offense to enable Dearness in the same way that they have been able to do with Kareem. So, yeah, I think it's an exploitable enough matchup. Ravens are 31st in giving up yards after contact per carry. It's one of these teams where, again, there with the Chargers, and I think the Vikings qualify too, where I think their general strategy of really putting more resources to help stop the pass compared to the run works against 26 to 28 teams in the league. But when you play the Browns, or if they play themselves the Ravens, you do run into a couple of these matchups where teams will be willing to run the ball enough to take advantage of it. So I wouldn't be shocked if Chubb could just do what he usually does, make the most out of a limited number of touches. So that's all I got on the Browns. Dwayne, we'll assume Lamar Jackson is back. Some of the stuff, I think it was Marlon Humphrey saying on the flight there that he was just curled up in a ball and just couldn't even come close to playing. It sucks the dude hasn't been healthy, but assuming Lamar is back, it's not the best matchup in the world. But with that said, it's Lamar. We got Rashad Bateman. We got Devontae Freeman. We got a lot of fantasy options in Baltimore.
Yeah, man. With Lamar Jackson, it is the absolute worst matchup from a quarterback strength of schedule standpoint. It's a 0 out of 10 on the week. They're only giving up 21 points, the Browns, to opposing quarterbacks this season. But like you said, it's Lamar Jackson. We don't care because why? Lamar has the quarterback cheat code in his legs. Also on pace to throw the ball 62% of plays versus 50% last year. So the ball is just in Lamar's hands more often. He's either throwing or he's running, and it's all good whenever we get to see Jackson getting that type of volume. So I still have him at quarterback 2. I have Brady as QB1 this week. I have Josh Allen as QB3. So still have Lamar inside my top 3. Looking at the backfield, Devonta Freeman, we covered this also on the recap show, but Freeman has seen over 58% of the snaps, 58% of the snaps exactly 3 consecutive games, and he's handled 50% of the rushing attempts the last 2 games, and we've really seen the backfield dwindle down to just a 2 running back backfield. Now, we know Lamar is still involved, or Huntley if he plays. You really still have 3 options because the quarterback is so involved in the running game, but it's nice just to have it down to 3 now instead of before it was 4, Ian. And so we've seen Freeman be able to squeeze out some value. And the nice thing is he's involved in the passing down work as well. So really he's kind of taken over some of that stuff that we expected from Dobbins and we saw from Dobbins last year. And I think that makes sense, right? When you look at the skill set of the players they have in the backfield, Freeman is the better fit as the guy to use in the passing game than someone like Latavius Murray. So he's handled 87%, 76%, 88% of the 2-minute offense over the last 2 weeks. The 2-minute offense used to mean nothing in Baltimore, but it actually does matter these days. So he's been able to post PPR finishes of 11. 30, and then 9, which probably is more like 10 or 11 after last night. But still, like, that's 2 top 12 finishes in the last 3 weeks for Freeman, and his bad game was an RB 30 finish. So you can do worse than Freeman. I've got him ranked number 24 on the week. Cleveland's also pretty tough on the running backs, opposing running backs as well. They're giving up 23 points per game. It's a 4.5 out of 10 on the running back strength of schedule. But it's a situation where I think there will be enough volume there that you keep Freeman in that borderline, RB2, RB3 range, low end RB2, and you're going to be okay. Marquise Brown, we'll have to wait and see if he's going to play. He didn't play last week with a quad injury. So if he doesn't, we'll expect to see Rashad Bateman get more snaps again, like he did last week. You also see Sammy Watkins potentially getting more, but it's about Bateman, and it's about Mark Andrews for me if you have Marquise Brown down. If Brown is back, then we fully expect him to take over his full role. It is a tough matchup against the secondary for the Browns that is actually doing a good job. It's 2.4 out of 10 on a wide receiver strength of schedule, which is going to be in the bottom 4 or 5 this week. The wide receiver cornerback matchup is about average. Actually it's a little bit below average, but Brown has been playing so well. I don't really worry about it if he's out there. And the thing you love with Brown, he gets used at all levels of the field. They're scheming him up. We know he's got the speed to beat you deep. You just have to hope that he doesn't retweak an injury. That's the main thing you've got to avoid. Right now, I'm assuming that Brown's going to play, which could be wrong. We're way early in the week. This is Tuesday night when we're recording this. But I've got him at wide receiver 26, which is quite a bit lower than where I've had him. I've had Brown inside my top 12 or right around a wide receiver 1 for 4 or 5 weeks now. So being a little cautious due to the injury, due to the matchup. If I think he's fully healthy, he practices in full today, tomorrow, and we get to a situation where we know that he's for sure playing on Sunday night and he's had those full practices, he'll move up into more of that mid-range mid-range wide receiver 2 instead of a high-end wide receiver 3. And then Mark Andrews is Mark Andrews, man. Golly, Ian, over the last few weeks, we always talk about the 80-20 rule, 80% of the routes and 20% targets per route run. Mark Andrews, he's just hold my beer. 89% routes 2 weeks ago, 98% this past week, and his targets per route on the season are 22%. So on the season, he's at 81% of the routes, 22% targets per route run in a Ravens offense that's passing more than it ever has. Andrews is just he's the set it and forget it tight end. You're just going to have him in there. I have him as tight end 3 for the week. The Browns they're a pretty good defense, overall. So they're pretty tough on tight ends as well. 1.7 out of 10. So on the tight end strength of schedule, it's a -12 on the tight end matchup. And you got 11.8 defensive points allowed per game to tight ends by the Cleveland Browns. But again, it's Mark Andrews. I don't care. Mark Andrews, Marquise Brown, when they're healthy, with Lamar Jackson, you're starting them every week.
It really was impressive what the Browns did on defense this offseason. I know we talked about their offense, but adding Clowney to complement Garrett, drafting Greg Newsome in the first round. They've actually gotten some healthy games out of Greedy Williams, John Johnson as well. When they are fully healthy, this Browns defense can play with just about anyone. Taking us to Monday Night Football. Last game, Seahawks at the football team. Seattle is favored by a half point. Last time I saw, opened at 2.5. Game total is resting at 46.5. So this is kind of similar to some of these Titans, situations and the other teams and the Raiders that just are not doing it for us lately, because the Seahawks have scored 13 total points since their Week 9 bye. They have won 1 game, and that was against the Jaguars, since Week 4. This is not our usual Seahawks team that we're used to seeing, and a lot of it certainly has to do with Russell Wilson not being the same after this finger injury, at least in recent weeks. Before the injury, 88.8 PFF passing grade. After, 43.8. Before the injury, 11 big-time throws, 0 turnover-worthy plays. After, 1 big-time throw, 3 turnover-worthy plays. Yards per attempt has dropped from 9.6 all the way down to 5.8. It really has been brutal, and I think those stats are backed up on paper. They just lost a home game to Colt McCoy, and it did blow my mind, Dwain, to find out that they also lost a home game to Colt McCoy in 2020. I don't know what it is about the Seahawks, but Colt McCoy has their number, I guess. Luckily, he is not on Washington at this point in time. That is Taylor Heineke. But with the current state of this offense, I'm likely trying to not start Russell Wilson if I can help it. Let's see him have a good game before we go back. So, I do my rankings tonight, and Dwain, where do you have Russ? Did you make the leap? Are we putting him outside the top 12, or are we just giving him one more week?
No, I've got him outside the top 12. I've got him at 13. Like, the matchup is good, but man, it's just tough to trust it. And it's not just Russ.
Right.
Like, Russ is not playing good, but like the play calling is atrocious. The pace is atrocious. Like, I mean, I don't know. Like, there's nothing really that I get excited about right now with this offense. I mean, I love the 2 receivers, but it's really bad.
But all the pre-snap motion, it's gonna. They also just stopped doing that. So,
Yeah.
DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, that's really it. I don't even want to start Alex Collins at this point. I mean, his job, if you looked at his overlying stats last week, I think they were okay. But Rashad Penny got the start. He actually got a report before the game that they were going to feature him more. He ripped off a nice run on his first carry, and he immediately hurt his hamstring. So Pete Carroll had a weird Pete Carroll quote. I'm not going to give the time of day because we cannot. It would probably just better off ignoring every single injury update Pete Carroll ever gives us for the rest of the time. Like, the fact that he had the audacity, Dwayne, to even say that Chris Carson is, on pace to be ready again for next year. Like, shut up, man. You've been wrong on this for 6 straight weeks. And it's not even a matter of like, Ian, don't listen to anything he says. I get that, but shut up already. Like, I still realize what you're saying. That doesn't make it any better. So Metcalf, Lockett, and we're not feeling good about Collins because they went to Penny. We even saw DJ Dallas. He played his most snaps in a minute, ended up getting the goal line roll. I mean, the job security just seems awfully thin. And if one of these weeks rolls around where Dallas or even Travis Homer just all of a sudden is being featured, it would hardly be surprising. So if Penny is going to miss some time with the hamstring, that would help Collins. But man, he is like the thinnest of borderline RB2 plays. Like, if it is a even somewhat close start-sit question, I will be going with the other guy over Alex Collins. So yeah, Metcalf, Lockett, try to avoid this group otherwise. Also, shout out to Gerald Everett. He has been making some plays. I think he's in that comfortable, tight end 2 range a little bit. Has more upside, I think, where he can actually give you a decent day without necessarily scoring a touchdown. But again, we're talking about a tight end and an offense that has scored 13 points over the last 2 weeks. But shout out to Gerald Everett. Leads all tight ends with 0.3 forced missed tackles per touch. The leaders at each position: Lamar Jackson, Javonte Williams, Kadarius Toney, and Gerald Everett. The more you know. Now, Dwayne, with the football team, you can talk about the running backs if you want. I think we kind of get it. But how about our guy, Taylor Heineke? Maybe not our guy, but hey, he's playing well, back-to-back good weeks. And don't look now, the guy's put together a nice little amount here of QB1 streams.
Yeah, I mean, you've been very positive on him. I think I've been a little harder on him, but I've got him at QB 13 this week. You've got a great matchup.
Hold on, you said Russ was QB 13.
Sorry. Well, I've got hang on, let me read. So Russ is 13, Heineke's 14. Sorry.
Wow. It just made so much difference, we needed to get that clear.
Yeah, but QB strength of schedule is a 6.7. And then you got offensive line pass blocking advantage 32 is the best on the week. So there's going to be plenty of time for Heineke to get the ball down the field to none other than who? Terry McLaurin. McLaurin also has a great matchup this week. It is on the wide receiver cornerback matchup. We don't see this very often, Ian, because it actually looks at how much time we think McLaurin's going to spend against each, defender, for the Seahawks. 100 out of 100. For Terry McLaurin. I've not seen that this year. Now, Justin Jefferson's close this week at a 99.1, but a 100 for Terry McLaurin, a 6.2 on the wide receiver strength of schedule. So I actually have Terry McLaurin in my second tier of receivers. He's at wide receiver 8 on the week. I expect big things. Obviously, if you want big things from him, we need big things from Taylor Heineke. So I feel good about both of those guys. Not really anyone else we can use right now, though, for Washington in the passing game. Ian, we'll have to wait and see. Is Logan Thomas going to be back or not? Ricky Seals-Jones also missed last week with a hip. So it was John Bates playing tight end. If it's a situation where it's just one of those, I might trust it. But even with Logan Thomas, with how long he's been out with this hamstring, it's like you just kind of want to see a week, right, when he comes back. I get it if you can't and you're in a situation where you're like, dude, I'm without Kelsey. I got to do something. I mean, I get it. Like, you can use Logan Thomas in that situation. I would prefer to give it one more week. We do know if it is just him that's out there, like it has typically been, doesn't matter which one of these guys out there, they're seeing, above 80% of the routes. They usually see 15 to 20% of the targets. And there's just no one else doing anything really. Now, we could get Curtis Samuel back, so we'll see what happens with him. He was close last week with this groin injury that's really plagued him since the preseason. He tried to come back a little earlier in the season. Things didn't work out. So we'll see where we are with Samuel. But, man, if we could get to a situation where Heinicke actually has 2 to 3 valuable weapons, in the passing game, Ian, I would be down for seeing, what could that look like. And it would be something that would give him even a little bit more of a boost. As far as the running backs, just really quick, I'm not going to say a lot, but the big thing that's really given a little bit of a boost to Antonio Gibson over the last few weeks, even though we've seen Jarrett Patterson get involved, is he's been in some matchups where the Seahawks have been able, or not the Seahawks, but the football team has been able to run the ball. And if you look at the Seahawks in regulation, so excluding overtime, they give up the second most running plays per game at 29.9. So we could be looking at 30 rushing attempts running straight at the Washington football team. And even though they've thrown the ball more than they've passed it, when you look at Washington and what they want to do across the different game scripts, they really are more of a run balanced team, or they at least want to be a balanced team. They end up throwing because they have to, the way the game scripts work out. So we could see a situation where Gibson he could be sneaky this week. He could push for 20 rushing attempts, and if you get that, maybe we get a rushing touchdown or 2. We know he's not involved in the passing game, so I won't go there. I don't want to, nobody should be upset at this point. It just kind of is what it is. But you did bring this up also, and I'll just kind of reemphasize it. You brought it up on the recap show. The Patterson thing's really kind of a hassle for McKissic, because before McKissic was getting all that passing down work, but he was also relieving Gibson a little bit in the rushing department. Well, now Patterson's kind of, picking up, that space in between. Any rushing attempts that we're giving up from Gibson are now not going to McKissic, and they're really just using McKissic in the passing game, which makes McKissic much more of a matchup dependent situation where you basically need a shootout, right? Or you need Washington to be trailing, which happens plenty, but I'm not sure that I would count on it this week against the Seahawks, given how bad their offense has been.
People, before we get out of here, I just have a quick update from none other than Des Bryant, who, after hearing the news about Jason Garrett, had this to say: Kadarius Toney, you will get to experience the love and joy for football throughout your career. Des Bryant, everyone. He caught it. And guess what else you can catch? The code CYBER40 to get 40% off any PFF subscription. All of PFF's locked article content, our rankings, strength of schedule, goodness, betting dashboards, player props, you name it. We got it over at PFF.com. And again, you can save 40% off any subscription with that code CYBER40. It's only a matter of time till it's mock draft season, and then we're scouting, and then we're in off-season fantasy football land. Just lock it in now at 40% off. You will not be sorry. Again, that's code CYBER40 for 40% off any sub. And also want to give a shout out to Manscaped. You can go to manscaped.com and use code PFF for 20% off and free shipping. 'Tis the season to load up on Manscaped products. So get yourself, your dad, your brother, and friends the best gift of them all, the Manscaped Performance Package 4.0. You'll get the signature lawnmower 4.0. Hey, it's waterproof. That sounds cool and handy because, you're in the bathroom, in the shower and stuff. It makes sense to me. Also got the new 2-for-1 shampoo and conditioner, which has key ingredients with benefits that include hydrating, nourishing, conditioning the scalp, strengthening your hair at the same time. I shave all my hair off because you can't wear beanies when you use hair gel. It's just a decision I've made in my life. But if you are one of those people that has long hair, use the Manscaped 2-for-1 shampoo and conditioner. Again, you can get 20% off and free shipping with the code PFF at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use code PFF. And also, if you want to get in on the DraftKings Sportsbook game this Thanksgiving, be thankful for family, food, and free bets. That's right, DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, has a Turkey Day no-brainer that you can't miss. New customers can bet just $1 on any Thanksgiving NFL game and win $100 in free bets if either team just scores a point. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code PFF. Bet just $1 on any Thanksgiving NFL game and win $100 in free bets if either team scores a point. That's promo code PFF this Thanksgiving at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Must be 21 or older. New Jersey, Indiana, or Pennsylvania. Only new customers. Only restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. And finally, shout out to our friends over at Western and Southern who are teaming up with PFF's very own Chris Collinsworth to share insights that can help put you ahead on both your fantasy and financial scoreboards. If you want to hear about Chris's old playing days, behind the scenes with Al and Sunday Night Football, how about a need to know for your financial future? You can ask about either or both and submit your questions at westernsouthern.com/askchris. One more time, that's westernsouthern.com/askchris. They'll read some of the answers on the Chris Collinsworth podcast and on Western Southern's Instagram with the answers every week. If you're watching on YouTube, check out the link in the description below for more info. Remember, with Western Southern, you can rest assured on game day. Dwain, I think we did that thing again where we talked for a ridiculous amount of time about football, but I love football and I love you, man, so screw it.
Yeah, I do too, man. One last quick update. Will Fuller, Brian Flores was asked about him today, and he still says there's no timetable. He's eligible, but there's no timetable. That's not a good sound, but we'll see. Flores can be one of those kind of goofy coaches that like thinks it's advantageous for him to throw like smoke signals, and I could actually see that with Fuller, right? Because of what he brings to the table. But to me, like I would be playing up. I would be more like Pete Carroll every week. I think Will Fuller, like he's almost. I would want the defensive coordinator worried about Will Fuller and that speed, so that I could design what I needed to underneath for the other guys. But we'll see what happens with Fuller.
Awful take by me that I'll save for this part of the podcast that most people are probably turned off. Bro, he broke his finger. Like, can't we get him out there?
Something else is going on. Something else is going on.
Go be a decoy. It's got to be something else. That is just weird to me. He did have some personal stuff early on in the season.
And they could be protecting him. Like they could be doing the cool thing by him. He may not want, certain things out there about his mental health, and maybe he is dealing with something. Yeah.
I hope so. I mean, it's a weird timeline more than I was just being a dick about it. The timeline is weird for a broken finger is the main point.
Yeah, I'm with you.
But hey, you know what, Dwain? Catching passes probably helps to have all 10 fingers in good shape. So get better soon. Well, I just want to watch him play football again, man. The last time we really saw him was this time last year on that incredible Thanksgiving Day performance where we also saw our guy Duke Johnson.
I think he's just looking at the Texans. He's, thinking just, golly, I should have stayed with Houston. Like, look what I could be doing.
All the possibilities. All right. For Dwain, I'm Ian. Thank you as always for tuning in to PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. And until next time, take care, everybody.